starts with 4imprint. Visit 4imprint.com.
4imprint for certain.
Those 26 miles in the rain?
Yeah.
FrameBridge can frame that with custom framing made easy. Whether it's a pick or a Picasso, FrameBridge will frame it with the highest quality materials. Millions of custom frames and counting. Get started today at framebridge.com.
Geopolitical risk has risen to the top.
The moment that we're in is very serious.
There is a lot of turmoil in the world.
You need to be careful and more cautious in where you're putting your money to work.
Investors might want to think about right-sizing positions.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Jonathan Farrow, Lisa Abramowitz, and Anne-Marie Hordern.
Live from New York City this morning. Good morning, good morning. For our audience worldwide, the third hour of Bloomberg Surveillance starts right now. The open and bound 90 minutes away. The scores, the price action looks like this. Equity futures declining. We're down by 1% on the S&P, down by close to 1.5 on the NASDAQ. The epicenter of some of these moves, the Middle East. And these moves, these developments in energy markets. Brent and WTI higher by 8% on Brent, 78.96, and getting closer again to $80 a barrel.
And it's important that the moves really started to pick up steam when it became apparent that there would be suspension of production from Qatar for their LNG facilities. What are the ripple effects just beyond the Strait of Hormuz? Even though it's not closed in principle, it might be closed in practice. And it does feel like a very divided community, whether that this is a dip that you can buy, one it is you fade, or one where the uncertainty is just too great to participate at all. But what is clear is that this is a president of the United States who is emboldened and an Iranian regime that is backed into a corner. And that leaves a lot of question marks as to how long and what comes next.
We'll talk about some of the key players involved in just a moment. Also need to talk about developments in the bond market. We've seen a major rally in fixed income over the last month. Sovereigns, to be precise, the 10-year Treasury. Yields down by 30 basis points last month. Yields up this morning by 5 on 10s, 3.99, and up by 6 on 2s. To what extent does that move in energy?
We are about to go to the Pentagon, where we are going to be briefed. I will be on camera closer to market opening. For now, the heat map for pre-market is up, and I will be back.
This is how these things go. I don't mean to make light of a tense situation,
no,
but the Pentagon has been in business a very long time, and I think we're observing also, some great Americans doing what they do.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, they're going to be out here momentarily. But as you can see, they zoomed in on the door. We believe that they just put down some of the comments and remarks that are going to be made here. Again, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth talking, of course, as well about the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That is Dan Raisin Kane. We should see them appear any moment. But I want to go back to the question I was asking you about the significance here of even providing these comments and making sure that the American people are up to date and they know everything about what's happening.
Well, I don't know that the American people are going to get everything that's happening. And that is based on, decades of experience working in national security. Does that mean that they won't learn the critical, important components, the ethical and moral components that justified the decision? I think that's the really important messaging that needs to come out here. And often I think that balance is, here we go.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. We just finished an update with Admiral Brad Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, across the CENTCOM AOR, our leadership and troops, as you would expect, doing a fantastic job. 2 days ago, under the direction and direct orders of President Donald J. Trump, the Department of War launched Operation Epic Fury, the most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history. For 47 long years, the expansionist and Islamist regime in Tehran has waged a savage, one-sided war against America. They didn't always declare it openly, except for their constant chants of death to America. They did it through the blood of our people. Car bombs in Beirut, rocket attacks on our ships, murders at our embassies, roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan, funded and armed by Iranian Quds Force and IRGC killers. My generation of veterans carry the names of brothers who never came home. Brothers butchered by Iranian-backed roadside bombs and well-armed militias, thousands of our own. We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it. Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah and his death cult. It took the 47th president, a fighter who always puts America first, to finally draw the line after 47 years of Iranian belligerence. He reminded the world, as he has time and time again, being an American means something unbreakable. If you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation, and we will kill you. President Trump has also been very consistent. Crazy regimes like Iran, hell-bent on prophetic Islamist delusions, cannot have nuclear weapons. It's common sense. Many have said it, but it takes guts to actually enforce it, and our president has guts. Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say that again. A conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Our bases, our people, our allies, all in their crosshairs. Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. Today, in their desperation, the enemy is unmasked as Iranian missiles and drones rain down indiscriminately on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of their neighbors. Cowardly terrorist tactics from a regime that for decades has trafficked in cowardly terrorist tactics, lies, death, and destruction to this day. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble. Afterward, we told them plainly, that's it, now make a deal. They arrogantly refused. We said, rebuild it, and we'll stop you again, this time far worse. Well, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they bent over backwards for real diplomacy, offering pathway after pathway to peace. I watched it. I was there. They tried over and over and over again earnest attempts at peace. The former regime had every chance to make a peaceful and sensible deal. But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions. Their goal, hold us hostage, threatening to strike our forces. Well, President Trump doesn't play those games. And as Secretary Rubio said after the Maduro raid, if you don't know, now you know. President Trump puts America and Americans first. He doesn't hesitate, and neither do our troops. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war, from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, We hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going. General Kane, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of my portion of the briefing today is to update you and the American people on the actions taken thus far. The briefing will discuss the preparation, the planning, setting the force, the early operations, and how we're assessing the progress thus far. So let's get started. On Saturday, 28 February at 01:15 Eastern Standard Time, 9:45 a.m. local Tehran time, on the orders of the President of the United States, U.S. Central Command, under the command of United States Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, commenced Operation Epic Fury. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the initial phases of the operation. But first, I want to express my deep condolences and the condolences of the Joint Force to the Department of War personnel killed and wounded in actions thus far. As the Secretary said, they're heroes and represent the best of our nation has to offer. They're true examples of what selfless service means. Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units. We grieve with you, and we will never forget you. Additionally, I stand here before you today grateful for each service member, planner, logistician, operator across our joint force, for our Department of War civilians, our intelligence community teammates, our interagency teammates who continue to stand in harm's way alongside us. I am proud of all of you as you take the fight to the enemy, and we are the best in the world at integrating, period. I want to extend my personal gratitude to the dedicated commanders and senior enlisted leaders and the enlisted members of the Joint Force who are fighting this fight across the CENTCOM AOR. In addition to Admiral Cooper and Fleet Master Chief Compton, I want to highlight a few today. U.S. Army Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Pat Frank, who, along with his team, are fighting the counter-missile and counter-drone fight. United States Navy Central Command Commander Vice Admiral Kurt Renshaw and his team, who are engaged with the Iranian Navy and projecting American naval combat power from the seas. And United States Air Force Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Derek France and his leadership team, who are crushing Iranian targets from the air. I want to highlight the support to the CENTCOM fight from other combatant commands who are directly involved with this effort, to include U.S. Spacecom, U.S. Cybercom, and U.S. UCOM. I also want to specifically call out United States Transportation Command and U.S. STRATCOM for their contributions to this fight. We cannot project American combat power at the time and place of our choosing without both. And finally, I want to express how deeply thankful I am for the continued service and sacrifice of the entire Joint Force and their families. Their unwavering commitment and dedication are the cornerstones of this effort. So let me start with a few details. First, to be clear, as the Secretary said, this is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations. So let me talk about the preparation and the planning. On February 28th, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. The United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and our reserve components integrated across our combatant commands and began coordinated operations with the Israeli armed forces of an unprecedented scale. As the Secretary laid out, our military objectives are clear. Our mission is to protect and defend ourselves and, together with our regional partners, prevent Iran from the ability to project power outside of its borders and be ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. Across every domain, land, air, sea, cyber, the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct and sustain combat operations. On the U.S. side, this marked the culmination of months and in some cases years of deliberate planning and refinement against this particular target set. From precision strikes against key military infrastructure to persistent intelligence and targeting integration to the close coordination of the components across vast distances, this operation again demonstrated America's reach, readiness, and professionalism, and that of our joint united force. It was historic not only in the operational scope, but in the level of joint integration displayed across every element of the joint force. And as I said earlier, this work is just beginning and will continue. So now to talk across the region. These movements ensured that U.S. forces remained postured, protected, and ready to respond decisively for any emerging threat. This deployment included thousands of service members from all branches, hundreds of advanced fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of refueling tankers, the Lincoln and Ford Carrier Strike Group and their embarked air wings, sustained flow of munitions, fuel, supplies, all supported with command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network. And the flow of forces continues today. In fact, Admiral Cooper will receive additional forces even today. This rapid buildup of forces demonstrated the joint forces' ability to adapt and project power at the time and place of our nation's choosing. I want to highlight a couple specific cases for you. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which many of you know was down in the Western Hemisphere, redeployed across the Atlantic to set the theater. The ship, her crew, their families, and the entire strike group took a deep breath and, as they always do, began planning to conduct combat operations. The integrated Reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, including the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, and Air National Guard units from a variety of states to include Vermont and Virginia. In the case of the Vermont Air National Guard and the 158th Fighter Wing, they were mobilized for Operation Absolute Resolve and then were tasked to take their F-35As across the Atlantic instead of going home to be prepared to support this operation. The same is with our Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve Command tanker and mobility forces, who stepped right out of their civilian jobs to deploy and to protect the region. Lastly, I want to highlight the unsung heroes of warfare, our American logisticians and sustainment force, those who quietly work every day behind the scenes to project and sustain America's combat power. Our leaders from World War II were right when they said professionals do logistics. As regional tensions rose, the Joint Force elevated our force protection measures on the order of the Secretary and repositioned discreetly civilians and non-essential personnel designed to ensure the safety and security of our joint force. By the time operations began, only essential forces remained on our bases and in theater, all ready, capable to respond. So now let me move to H hour. At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The president directed, and I quote, "Operation Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck," close quote. In the region, every element of the joint force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons, and two carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operation centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranian's command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense-capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter-UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matters under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the joint force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's joint force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your joint force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's joint force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right here. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time. What percentage of Iranian long strike capabilities are still in the fight, and what is our exit strategy here, and when will it be deployed?
Well, they have long-range strike capabilities, which we are hyper-focused on. The brief we got just this morning, Admiral Cooper knows exactly and precisely what kind of threat matrix he's looking at, the way they might change their techniques, and how we adapt to that. So we're making sure the theater commander has absolutely everything he needs. I mean, one of the things the chairman mentioned is for months and months, even before we built up, we ensured that we had maximum defensive capabilities in theater to allow the president the decision space in the future. So even before this buildup in the last 30 days, we discreetly brought defensive assets in to make sure, understanding that there are Iranian capabilities. As far as time frame, I would never hang a time frame from our perspective. The commander-in-chief sets the op tempo and terms of this fight. As I said, it's on his terms. And we'll make sure that Admiral Cooper and his team have everything they need, not just to defend. I mean, the best defense is good offense. And so we're aggressively pushing into that airspace over that southern flank to ensure that we control it and we destroy anything that moves that would attempt to shoot us. Think of it as shooting the archer instead of the arrows. That's where we want to be. And we have the kind of exquisite intelligence to get over the top, find that and destroy it. It won't happen overnight. This is a big battle space with a lot of capabilities. That's part of the reason why it's such a threat to us. That's why I talk about conventional umbrella to blackmail nuclear ambitions. They were building up this conventional arsenal in order to ensure that no one would ever block them from their ability to get nuclear weapons. So we're very clear-eyed about the nature of this Iranian threat, and we're going to get after it. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the question. The only thing I'll add is that unlike an operation, a single operation like Midnight Hammer or Absolute Resolve, it'll take some time for us to conduct battle damage assessment, and the targeting cycle that CENTCOM will run will take those things into effect. Admiral Cooper will adjust his plan and fires accordingly to ensure that we're attriting that. He's focused on long-range strike capability coming out of the enemy, and that's a key and essential part of it.
Of the capabilities that still exist from the enemy front?
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say we're still doing BDA. Normally we'd be able to see a singular thing and we'd assess pretty quickly. He's doing offense and assessment simultaneously, so it'll take longer for us to assess than it would in a single operation.
Secretary Hegseth, thank you. Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. 2 questions for you. The president said yesterday in his video message that we will leave Iran when we complete all of our objectives. What are our objectives? And can you share more information on how the soldiers who were killed were killed?
Well, I laid out the objectives, as did the chairman. They're completely nested. I mean, Iran has an ability to project power against us and our allies in ways that we can't tolerate. So whether that's ballistic missiles and drones, so offensive capabilities, effectively their Navy, which would attempt to set other terms and impose different costs, drone capabilities, which we laid out there. And ultimately, though, this tying it back to Midnight Hammer, the president has been willing to make a deal. You can't have a nuclear bomb. Radical Islamists can't have a nuclear bomb that they wield against the world. He gave them every single opportunity. Then we precisely took it away. And even then, after that, they didn't have that. They didn't come to the table with a willingness to give it away. So ultimately, those nuclear ambitions, which never ceased, are something that had to be addressed as well. So that's a discrete sense of what's being addressed here to ensure that they can't use that conventional umbrella to continue a pursuit of nuclear ambitions. And then as it pertains to the U.S. casualties, that particular incident was, you have air defenses and the lot's coming in and you hit most of it. And we absolutely do. We have incredible air defenders. Every once in a while, you might have one, unfortunately, we call it a squirter that makes its way through. And in that particular case, it happened to hit a tactical operations center that was fortified, but these are powerful weapons. So we certainly will do, as I said, moments like that, as we remember them and we take care of them and take care of their families, only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we do this properly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right here.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had 2 questions for you. First, are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do. I think it's one of those fallacies for a long time that this department or presidents or others should tell the American people this, and our enemies, by the way, here's exactly what we'll do. Here's exactly how long we'll go. Here's exactly how far we'll go. Here's what we're willing to do and not do. It's foolishness. And so President Trump ensures that our enemies understand we'll go as far as we need to go to advance American interests. But we're not dumb about it. You don't have to roll 200,000 people in there and stay for 20 years. We've proven that you can achieve objectives that advance American interests without being foolish about it. Now, will we be bold about it? Are we willing to be decisive about it? Do we put months and months of planning into what kind of effects we want to achieve? Absolutely. But going forward, why in the world would we tell you, the enemy, anybody, what we will or will not do in pursuit of an objective? We fight to win. We fight to achieve the objectives the President of the United States has laid out. And we will do so unapologetically. Thank you.
Is there any significance to Israel carrying out the strike to kill the Ayatollah? And I wanted to know, what was your immediate reaction to finding out about his killing?
I think Israel did a great job in the conduct of that operation.
President Trump put a 4-week timeline
right
on
here.
it. Are you
Please.
saying that's wrong?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned during the briefing, General Kane, that there would be additional troops sent to the region. Could you say how many troops currently are involved in this operation and how many additional troops are planned to go in this next phase?
I don't want to talk specifics because that would tip the enemy off. We have more tactical aviation flowing into theater just based on the time it took to get it out there. I think we're just about where we want to be in terms of total combat capacity and total combat power for Admiral Cooper. One of the things, though, that a commander, he'll consistently assess the trajectory of the campaign. Is he on or off trajectory? And then make an ask of the joint force, which will then develop options for consideration by the Secretary and the President to either increase or in some cases decrease the amount of combat capability that we have over there.
I heard the question about about 4 weeks. It's the typical NBC sort of gotcha type question. President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up. It could move back. We're going to execute at his command the objectives we've set out to achieve. And what he has shown an ability to do that other presidents can't quite seem to have the aperture to do, well, I mean, Joe Biden didn't even know what he was doing, is to look for opportunities and off-ramps and escalations for the United States that creates new opportunities to execute what we need on our own timeline. So you can play games about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. He has all the latitude, and I'm glad he does, because there's no better communicator than our president expressing those things.
Daily Mail.
I've been in meetings with the president for the last 2.5 days. We know exactly where his headspace is, and he will communicate as he should exactly what he would like, and we will follow those orders. And I think everything he said on that is right down the middle.
Chairman, did you
Absolutely.
have
Yes, right there. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Secretary. I left my hometown of Sakis in Iranian Kurdistan in 1996. Can you promise that I will be able to return home safely this year? And I have a following question too, please.
I appreciate the question. I'm not here to place guarantees on that, but I think the message the president has given has been clear to the people of Iran. This is your moment. The world was seized by these crowds and then seized by the reality of this regime killing tens of thousands of innocent protesters. So we saw the nature of the regime yet again exposed. We saw many of the Iranian people seek a change there. This is their moment to take advantage of it, for sure.
You served in Iraq and know that no American soldiers were killed in Kurdistan. The Kurdish people are very pro-American. Will you continue protect Kurdistan and Peshmerga as loyal ally of the United States? Why I'm asking this question? Because now Kurdistan is under attack by Iranian drones and by proxies in Iraq and on the region.
I think I can speak to allies generally in the region who we've been in constant communication with. We've been standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and we appreciate their capabilities. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you. Cameron Arkin with the Daily Wire. My question is about some of the domestic threats, if any, regarding this right now. Have there been any concerns about Iranian sleeper cells, and kind of what has the Trump administration been doing to kind of monitor these threats?
Across the interagency, in full coordination, of course, we're paying attention to any potentialities there. This is a former regime, a regime that seeks to export that ideology and try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before, and the American people can rest assured that we're vigilant on that.
Secretary, thank you. Kind of a follow-up on that last question. There was just this, what appears to be a terrorist attack in Austin yesterday. How does that change the operation at all? What effect does that have?
It doesn't change the operation at all, and I know the authorities are executing exactly the way they should.
Secretary Higseth, and one for Chairman Kane as well. I understand, to your point here, that you don't want to broadcast everything for our adversaries to hear, but the American people also want to know what they're sending their men and women to war for. Is there a concern of this spiraling into a longer war? And then one for the chairman when you're done.
Did you not hear my remarks? I mean, we're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we are very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives. So we know we have plans, we have generals, we have chairmen, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper, who's executing very deliberately to ensure outcomes that I laid out are accomplished. But we would never, in front of a press pool, lay out how long that may take. The mission for our warfighters, which is what matters to us, is very, very clear. And they're executing it right now violently.
And just for the chairman quickly, I have one for the chairman. You said this is not a one-night operation. It will take time to achieve the goals. What would be the goal line here for you?
I think the Secretary laid out the military objectives, and that's what we execute against is the military objectives.
Last one right here.
Uranium is. Thank you, sir. As you've said, there are a large amount of U.S. service members that are in harm's way right now. What is your prayer for them?
First of all, my prayer for them is that I do pray for them. My wife prays for them. Our family prays for them. Our cabinet prays for them. None of this is done on a whim. Having been in their boots, having been in their shoes, having been in their flight suits, I know we think about them with every decision that we make and every recommendation that we make to the President of the United States. Those recommendations are made prayerfully. And when I pray every day for them and for this mission, I pray simply for the biblical wisdom to see what is right and the courage to do it. It's going to take courage to follow through on this. There's going to be a lot of noise, and we pray for that, and we hope all of you do as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Going to strike first.
All right, there you go. That was an update from the Pentagon. Of course, we had Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, providing that update, taking questions from members of the media. Obviously, as you heard from Secretary Hegseth, there's a lot they can release and a lot more they cannot release just yet. President Trump saying this Operation Epic Fury could continue for the next 5 weeks or so. We're going to continue to follow all of the latest developments as soon as we get them here on Live Now from Fox. And as we follow much more information coming into the newsroom, I do want to pop up this video right here on your screen as we learned just a bit earlier about the situation that unfolded in Kuwait, all related to Operation Epic Fury. Again, what you're looking at on your screen is some smoke that's actually rising from the area around the U.S. Embassy over in Kuwait City. We have now learned from the U.S. military that it appears this was a situation of friendly fire as Kuwait shot down 3 of the different aircraft, 6 people on board, and the U.S. military saying that they are all listed in, quote, stable condition and have been recovered after they reportedly ejected from the aircraft. That's a lot to discuss here. I do want to bring in Matthew Wiz Buckley, a great friend of the show, to discuss more about that and the operation in general. Wiz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Good morning, Josh. Good to wake up to, well, bad to wake up to 3 F-15s getting shot down, but seeing that the air crew have been rescued put a smile on my face.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about that overall, kind of your thoughts here when you hear at first that this has happened, the aircraft shot down, but then you find out it's Kuwait and it's a situation of quote unquote friendly fire.
What's sad, Josh, is friendly fire is just it's the cost of warfare, the fog of warfare. Now, thank God, in modern day warfare, it's a lot less. But Josh, this isn't the first friendly fire incident in the region. We lost 2 F-18s, one in Desert Storm and one in OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom, I think in 2003. And that guy was killed, that F-18 pilot. We lost a Tomcat shot down by friendly fire. And also, I think the Brits lost a Tornado. I think both those aircrew got killed. And man, there was 2 Black Hawk helicopters that actually were shot down by an Air Force F-15, 30 plus folks killed on that. So friendly fire incidents are a horror. They're extremely rare, thank God. But this case, Josh, I got to tell you, man, looking at the videos, it's broad daylight. So let's use our thinking brain. It's broad daylight. The Iranian Air Force doesn't exist anymore. It was destroyed on the ground. So they're not flying any fighter jets, clearly, from Iran. Yes, they're shooting, missiles. Yes, they're shooting drones. But if you're a Patriot missile battery operator, use your brain, man. And this is technology is great, and then it's awful, right? We really need to have a human in the loop here to use their brain. Clearly, 3 enemy aircraft weren't entering Kuwait airspace from Iran. That's just nearly physically impossible. So what that tells me, Josh, is that these Patriot batteries are kind of in an automatic mode. And you could be, as an operator, be hanging out at your desk, smoking a cigarette, and all of a sudden you hear a whoosh, and there goes one of your missiles. That's bad. I was on the Abraham Lincoln off the coast of Hawaii. We were, battling, so to speak, another battle group in some exercises, and a Japanese destroyer actually shot down one of our A6s. They were towing a banner past the Japanese ship, and the Japanese ship was supposed to target it with its Sea Whiz, that big R2-D2 looking machine gun. Well, it shot the banner and then started searching for a new target. So after the banner got shot off, it went up the cable and shot the A6 down. So technology is awesome, but it's also bad. And this is a case of potentially technology bad, but also human error. Because Josh, remember, and civilians call it a transponder. In the military, it's called an IFF, identify friend or foe. So throughout the day, we have secret squirrel codes that I enter into my F-18, and the people on the ground know that's a good guy code, and I'm squawking it. So if you're not squawking the right good guy code, the Patriot battery could say instantly, well, that's an enemy, and fire. So something bad happened here, Josh. And obviously, as you heard my buddy Raising Cane say, he's not going to say any more about it. Why? Because we're going to investigate it. But thank God, man, when I saw the crews jumping into the back of a pickup truck or being rescued, man, I mean, just what are the odds? And real quick, Josh, I know you and I talked about this last year, the USS Gettysburg. One of our own ships shot down an F-18 Hornet that was getting ready to land aboard the Roosevelt. I mean, so rare, but they do happen.
And I wanted to ask here because we do know, as I mentioned, that the 6 people who are on board those 3 aircraft are listed in, quote, stable condition. The U.S. military is saying they're going to be okay. We're obviously working to get more information about the whole thing. Raising Cane saying he's only going to speak a little bit about it right now and will release more information later. What I wanted to ask, though, is the ejection situation. How does that work where you just know I have to eject from the aircraft? You've obviously, been involved in this sort of thing. Kind of break that down for folks out there.
Well, let's go back to the F-18 mishap. So the one F-18 landing got hit and they ejected, and the other one outmaneuvered the missile. So I don't know. We're obviously going to read the debriefs if these air crews knew they were being targeted, right? They have enough weapons and alert systems on board. It's like a
opportunity, it sounds like. Big roadmap.
Big opportunities going forward. Again, once the volume is here and we're on the cusp of adoption, it's really just about volume and ramping it up. So that's pretty exciting for 2027.
Okay, we got hyperscalers, we got humanoids. Things are changing pretty fast, guys.
Yes, they are. And now we've got a market stake on a classic Hollywood gap show staple.
The way that we track is actually neutral.
And today's runway is all
so
about
essentially we have two-way
race,
risks. We have a catalyst, we have a change, we have essentially what could be a catalyst here for the dollar to start to rally, particularly against European currencies like euro, stocky, and sterling, currencies that are all lagging on these indicators and ones that have been supported extremely well by positioning and narratives.
So, Mark, let's talk about rate differential specifically. For the Federal Reserve, what does crude closer to 80 than 60 mean to them?
Well, I think what matters is it's also the inflation surprise. So if you look at U.S. inflation surprises, they've bottomed out recently. And so if inflation starts to top to the upside, which is kind of what we're seeing on some of our leading indicators when we look at an inflation factor, I think part of it here is that yields will start to see a flattening of the yield curve. And if you look at the correlation that's been predominant since kind of Liberation Day, is that steepness in the yield curve has equated to a weaker dollar. So what we're starting to see is our global macro factors, we're starting to see the dollar correlate a little bit more closely with global growth. And we're also starting to see those hedges roll off. So I think when we bring it back to yields, what we're going to start to see is better data, upward revisions to U.S. growth outlook, along with stronger data momentum, should equal a more hawkish Fed, or at least a Fed that looks more neutral or hawkish relative to market pricing, which is still expecting further easing. I think this is the mirror image of what we should expect out of Europe. In terms of trade shock, natural gas inventories are extremely low levels, and these terms of trade shocks are terrible for real income and real purpose of how the economy actually grows. And that's what we saw in Asia. That's what we saw in Europe in 2022. And so higher oil prices kind of makes its way through the central bank trades through the steepness of the curve and the relative shape of the front end.
Mark, I also can't tell you how many calls I had heard this year that it would be a year for emerging markets with an ongoing dollar weakness. Does this also change those bets?
I don't think it's entirely terrible for carry. I think what you need is growth-adjusted carry. So you need quality growth currencies. So I think the way you would want to play this is you want to look at the relative appeal of emerging market carry. This might not be great for Brazil immediately, but I feel like if you cross G10 pairs like sterling or euro or even Swiss, which is starting to get on the S&P's radar screen, selling those low-yielding G10 currencies versus Brazil, I still think is a good trade. Because on the other side of this is good for commodity exposure. So energy prices going up, it's in terms of trade shock, someone wins, someone loses. Latin America tends to win. This is not great for Turkey, obviously given its proximity to the geographic region. But I think the other currency that should do fairly well, and the way that I'd cross this in North America, is you sell the Canadian dollar versus the Mexican peso. Those are two currencies that kind of look really disjointed. They have obviously trade concerns around USMCA and how they're linked to the story of trade and uncertainty within the US and USMCA. So there's ways of playing it, but you want an EM carry with a strong growth profile that benefits alongside the high carry to vol ratios.
Hey, Mark, it's good to see you. Thanks for jumping on. Mark McCormick there of BMO Capital Markets. Pleased you brought up EM. EM equities down by 2% in today's session alone. We need to talk about American households as well. This from Neil Dutter of Renmac. There is not much of a buffer for US households. The US might be energy independent, but rising prices will still pinch consumption.
I think it's also important that this is an American economy that's been increasingly tied to the stock market, be it household ownership of stocks, be it the most wealthy being the ones who are driving this consumer economy. If this also has the impact of an equity market sell-off, if bond yields move higher, which the equity market is dependent on, if commodity prices go up, which in turn pushes up the bond market, do you get that uneasy feedback loop that has an impact on the American economy, even though that this is a conflict happening far away from the U.S.?
We have called this several times the longest first quarter ever. There is still one more month to go. Coming up tomorrow, we'll catch up with Chris Ferrone of Strategas, Torsten Slock of Apollo, Mark Hafley of UBS Global Wealth Management, Julie Beale of Kane Anderson Rudnick. Plus, before we get there, this later, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Bramo catching up with the JP Morgan Chase Chairman and CEO, Jamie Dimon. Look out for that later on this afternoon from New York City this morning. Good morning. Looking forward to tracking a very real developing story in the Middle East with you throughout the week. From New York City, this was Bloomberg Surveillance.
Bringing you up to the minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Amber Hordern in Davos, Switzerland, and this is Bloomberg.
When the game moves, move with it. Buy or sell your predictions live, all game long.
How much? I can do this myself.
Rock Auto has the same parts professional mechanics use, many that you can easily install for a fraction of the cost. Do it yourself with Rock Auto.
All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
Another day in the finance department. Wait, did we pay this already? 6070 airfares, 6040 meals and entertainment. Receipts, expense reports, invoices, purchase orders. What's that? RAM? Cards with built-in policies. Expenses that submit themselves? Look at it go. Okay, but does it code automatic? Oh. We're fixing the parts of finance you hate. RAM. Love finance.
You put everything into getting it right, from launches to milestones and team recognition. With expert support, quality products, and on-time delivery, 4imprint makes sure your brand shows up strong. 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
You have no idea how long Marvin has waited to sing like this. Before getting his new teeth from Affordable Dentures and Implants, Marv wouldn't let himself dream about getting back on stage. But now, he's back under the bright lights, right where he belongs. Sing your heart out, Marvin. You've earned it. Affordable Dentures and Implants. That's what we do.
FrameBridge, we believe the items you frame tell your story. Life is full of moments worth celebrating, and we're here to frame them all. Custom frame everything you love, big, little, and in between. Visit a store or framebridge.com to get started.
Sweet new boots, man. Where'd you get them from?
Thanks, I got them from
GoBets.com.
Why did your voice just...
Natalie, you got the tickets?
Yep, I got them from...
There's no way her voice...
I wanted to do a lot of research on different decking materials. TimberTech was the clear winner. The variability of the colors, our TimberTech deck feels like a natural wood product, but we don't have to spend our time maintaining it. TimberTech, it's everything wood should be.
Aquasana gave us more than just clean, healthy water. It gave us more space in the fridge, more room in the recycling bin, less carbon footprint, and ultimate peace of mind. Now up to 50% off at aquasana.com.
All right, we are looking at futures at session lows, 30 minutes till the start of the cash trade. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Danny Berger. Bloomberg Open Interest starts right now.
Coming up, President Trump warns the strikes on Iran may last weeks and tells Tehran's leaders to stand down.
Oil surges the most in 4 years as tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz stalls, and a key Saudi refinery shuts down along with Qatari LNG.
And as the war with Iran escalates, inflation fears resurface, piling pressure onto markets that were already on edge.
And the individual equity reaction, Matt, it's one that you would expect. Energy stocks go up, as do defense stocks. Let's look at some of the moves. Exxon up nearly 5%, Chevron 3.5%, Halliburton 4.5%. And it did seem like the big catalyst for the move to extend this morning, Matt, was Qatar shutting down production of LNG from what is the world's biggest export plant. Already there's been disruption around the Strait of Hormuz, but it seems to be growing in size, that amount of disruption.
Yeah, disruption or even closure, really. If it's a self-imposed closure. You can see defense stocks are obviously up across the board. Traders preparing for a prolonged war in the Middle East, maybe not a couple of days, maybe not just a week, but maybe multiple weeks, or a conflict without end, with Iran's security chief ruling out negotiations with the U.S.
And you can see that reaction in markets, de-risking, weighing the impact of war on assets and interest rates. The timeline is still unclear, with President Trump saying the Middle East operations could last weeks. Here's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in the last hour.
Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel.
Let's get the latest with Bloomberg's Dan Williams, based in Jerusalem. And Dan, in that press conference, Secretary Hegseth said that the objective is not a regime change war, but the regime did change. Where do things stand on the ground now?
The war continues. It's in its third day. The Iranians appear to be measuring their response in terms of husbandry, what's also known as missile math. They've been firing in a great number of directions, not just at Israel, not just at U.S. bases, but sometimes at the properties of neighboring Arab states as well, bringing in quite a number. And in fact, even Cyprus, a European country, feels that one of its sites was under attack from an Iranian drone. That has caused quite a deal of upset in Europe, and a possible preparation by some European powers to enter this in some form. So the war is expanding. When it comes to Israel, that's the corner of the Middle East where I am right now. The Israelis have or see a second front opening up now with Lebanon after Hezbollah fired some half dozen rockets into northern Israel overnight. The Israelis had warned Hezbollah not to join in, but it had seemed given that Hezbollah receives both funding and ideological guidance from Iran. And after the supreme leader of Iran was discovered or declared dead in that initial U.S.-Israeli assault, it seemed really unavoidable that Hezbollah would have tried to avenge his death.
Dan, how much of Hezbollah still exists? I mean, we have had reportedly incredibly good intel coming out of Israel. And of course, we all watched the destruction of, for the most part, Hezbollah via Israel in the Gaza war. So how much of these proxy armies still exist, and how much firepower does Iran have?
That's a terrific question, and it's worth noting that in the run-up to this war, neither Israel nor the United States were very keen on giving an account of what might remain in the arsenals of Iran, of Hezbollah. I think they were keeping things close to their chest. I think they were trying to lull those parties into a sense that war might not be imminent. Obviously, the more you drum up enemy capabilities, the likelier the enemy is to see an attack coming. However, what we've now been told about Iran by the Israeli side was that before this war erupted, i.e. as of Friday of last week, they had some 2,500 ballistic missiles of various ranges, some able to reach Israel, perhaps even southern Europe, and others closer, able to threaten US bases and neighboring Arab states. Now, if one assumes that some 500 were fired over the weekend, which seems about right given the accounts from Israel, from UAE, from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia and the like, and say an equal number were destroyed on the ground by the United States and Israel. It's certainly one of their objectives. One would imagine that at this rate of fire, the Iranians can go for another 4 or 5 days at most. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're choosing their targets more carefully, perhaps mixing up missiles with drones to provide as much variety and to extend their capability to maintain a cycle of fire to show they're still in the fight. As for Hezbollah, indeed, they were beaten back by Israel when they fought Israel in parallel with Hamas during that Gaza war. In fact, they held their fire since the ceasefire of 2024 between Israel and Lebanon, even though the Israelis kept killing Hamas members, sometimes at a rate of about one a day. What they said was an enforcement of that ceasefire, a prevention of a retrenchment of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. However, they are widely believed to have retained tens of thousands of fighters, thousands of missiles and rockets as well, perhaps some of those precision guided. Now, it's possible Hezbollah is not in a rush to give up what remains of their arsenal. However, they could potentially cause significant damage, especially with those precision-guided systems when it comes to Israeli infrastructure and with those fighters should they engage Israeli soldiers face-to-face.
All right, really valuable information, Dan. Appreciate your reporting over the weekend. Dan Williams there live out of Jerusalem. Now, oil has spiked as tanker traffic and refineries in the Middle East are at a halt. Let's bring in Bloomberg Intelligence commodity strategist Mike McGlone. Mike, it's worth pointing out as well that even if Iran publicly says it doesn't intend to halt traffic through the Straits of Hormuz because of a spike in insurance prices, the ships that are gathered, I have heard estimates that about 150 are waiting, have decided not to try and pass through.
I think that's the key thing, Matt, you started there. It's never been really officially closed through military action. Right now, I think people are curtailing to be prudent to stay away from the action. But the bottom line is by the end of this week, if there's still a problem with offensive missiles leaving Iran and them not being rendered defenseless, which I expect they will, then we've got a problem. But right now, this is just day one of markets open. We've got Brent crude bumping up to near last year's high, which is about $82.63 a barrel, gold up. But these markets are already very expensive. They're priced for right now a bit of a worst case. I think the situation will probably be toned down by the end of the week. If Iran can't keep sending missiles out indiscriminately, I mean, they're not attacking. It's just an idea of can they really curtail supply significantly? And I think that's unlikely.
Mike, how is this pricing in the worst case? I got to ask, because even though the percentage seems big, we're still under $80 a barrel. Javier Blas putting out that with this move, if it were to hold, it would only be the 53rd biggest move in oil, despite the fact U.S. and Israel attacked Iran, killing the supreme leader with objectives of regime changes, with attacks on oil energy infrastructure. Isn't that remarkable that we're only trading on NYMEX crude $72 a barrel?
Danny, you nailed it. Partly because the answers have changed. The price maker status is switched to the Western Hemisphere. Just U.S. and Canada alone this year approaching net surplus of supply versus demand, approaching 8 million barrels a day. To put that in context, Iran exports less than 2 million barrels a day. So this is short term, but this is accentuating the bear market strategy, which is all these Western producers are looking forward on that curve and saying, thank you, I'll sell forward, I'll bring on more supply. And the bottom line is we have an election coming up, and the leader of the world's largest energy producer, net exporter, wants prices lower. What do you think is going to happen by the time we get to November? I'm pretty sure that that green candle we see in crude oil right now will switch to red by the time we get to the midterms.
All right, Mike, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Bloomberg Intelligence commodity strategist Mike McGlone. And that oil price spike, it has seeped into other assets. Bond yields are moving higher. The 10-year yield's back above 10%. There's a question, does this force the Fed to keep interest rates elevated? Joining us now is Bloomberg macro strategist Michael Ball, who was formerly, we should note, at the New York Fed. Mike, how are you thinking about the transmission mechanism of what's happening in the oil energy infrastructure right now, and as to whether it does impact the Fed's path from here?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that treasuries are no longer the safe haven. They obviously got the bid immediately, but then people went right to this inflationary story. And going out of last week into this weekend, we already had that stagflationary tone weighing on cyclicals, weighing on small caps as we got a stronger PPI. So the Fed has been sort of vindicated in their patience, and now we're seeing basically cuts move back into September now, so basically out of June and July. And that's a worry for things that are more duration sensitive or refinancing and all this stuff that's kind of kept this reacceleration trade going for the first 6 weeks of this year.
All right, so we see the 10-year yield back above 4% as that tug of war between, on the one hand, safe haven seeking, and on the other hand, inflation concerns is seemingly won out by inflation. What do you expect to see in stocks this morning? I was talking to a bunch of traders yesterday who saw, for example, cruise operators diving today. What are we going to see in terms of the fallout?
Yeah, I mean, it is doing what you would expect right now. I think what we want to look at is the next leg, which is probably, again, back to this idea that we now no longer have this financial condition easing priced in as much for the second half of this year. So every fiscal boost and basically the easing boost we've gotten from already what the Fed has done is going to hit a little bit of more of a wall. The consumer now is going to have greater uncertainty. They're going to see the pump price go up likely if this continues. Now, we don't know how long this will go, and that's obviously the big question everyone's asking. But all this comes down on confidence again and acts as a tax on the consumer. So your multiple expansion needs to come in a little bit as far as your expectations. And again, you had a great interview with Lori from RBC this morning who kind of nailed down the head. We need to be patient, but again, these are greater headwinds, and now the Fed has to be more patient.
Lori was also really great in all those studies, those historical studies and conflicts you should buy the dip, saying that most of them were based on short-term conflicts, that if you look at large-scale wars, most of them ended with stocks lower over the next 12 months.
But isn't this, Michael, I mean, the thought from markets is that you can use Venezuela, and I heard you talking about this with John on surveillance this morning as well. You can use Venezuela to some extent as a roadmap or a playbook.
That's what Trump wants to do.
Exactly.
So I think what the markets got spooked by a little more was that we took out too many of the leaders, and that Trump said some of the guys he wanted to come and replace were basically killed in the initial strike and unwittingly known by the U.S., which shows there isn't this real coordinated attack. It was kind of a whimsical thing that killed too many people. And I hate to use these words so freely, but that's what happened. And unfortunately now regime change, or I should say a regime adjustment, which is basically what's really occurring, is less certain and hence more prolonged of uncertainty, and hence the market has to price the risk.
There's no Delcy Rodriguez left is the point. But the question is, does the president want regime change, as he has been saying himself on Truth Social, or does he want leadership change, as we saw in Venezuela with the same regime still in place? We're going to continue to talk about this, and you can follow Bloomberg's Michael Ball and the MLive team on your terminal. Just type MLIV GO. In terms of futures, as we kicked off the show at session lows here, we remain there with S&P futures down 1.2%, NASDAQ futures off 1.5%. Let's get a look at some of the other single stock stories. Amazon Web Services were disrupted after one of its data centers in the UAE was hit by unidentified objects. So that stock right now is down about 2.33%. NVIDIA is investing $2 billion in both Lumentum and Coherent to support R&D. You can see NVIDIA shares, the all-important NVIDIA stock, down 1.7% in the pre-market this morning. Berkshire Hathaway's operating profits fell nearly 30% in Warren Buffett's final quarter as chief executive officer. You can see Berkshire Hathaway stock down 1.5% in the pre-market as well. When we come back, we'll turn back to Iran with Council on Foreign Relations Middle East senior fellow Stephen Cook. We'll ask him if the administration in the U.S. wants an Iranian regime change or just a leadership change under the same IRGC. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Markets approached all-time highs today, capping off another wild week on Wall Street.
I've been on the road lately, and I keep hearing the same questions about market volatility and building portfolios that can weather storms. At Vanguard, our strategy isn't built for one type of market environment. It's designed to perform across all of them. The bond market is complex, but for skilled managers, it creates an opportunity and can be a source of advantage.
The future of home shopping is here, and it's only on Homes.com. Introducing Homes AI.
Welcome back. How can I help?
Homes, please find me a 3-bedroom home in Atlanta. I love to cook. Show me the kitchens. Narrow it down to homes walkable to a Whole Foods. Please take me on a virtual tour of the second listing. What's unique about this home?
What stands out is the open floor plan with 10-foot ceilings, vintage wide plank French oak floors, and a gourmet kitchen with Viking
I
appliances.
don't like this decor.
All
Please
right.
remove the furniture. Show me that kitchen.
Fuck that kitchen. How's everybody doing this morning? We are live. Let's see what Fox Now is saying.
Of uranium enrichment as well, and in this case,
a lot of talk about the war in Iran. What's everybody's thoughts on that? I'm very curious because the general. Well, let me adjust this audio because I keep hearing myself in the headphones, and that's kind of annoying. I don't think I can do much about it. Anyway, things looking mostly red this morning. It looks like the energy sector is about the only thing that's performing well. Silver has taken a dive, but that is probably largely due to the dollar taking off pretty well. Just a word of warning. I have these buy and sell signals for trading. They happen to be on every single chart I pull up, and I can't get rid of it short of disabling them for all, which I don't want to do. But for normal things like silver or Bitcoin or oil, these things you can trade. The indicators will still show up randomly on things that you can't trade, like the inflation rate. So just be wary of that. Don't take all of them to heart. But when you see them on things like, silver and Bitcoin and things that we all know we can trade, that's what they're there for. Hello to my beautiful people on Rumble. I am so glad to see so many people showing up, even if it is just a handful. But this is a small channel, and we are slowly growing. I appreciate your patronage. Very much so. Just be sure to click that follow button, because I'm like 5 followers away from Rumble paying me. Like I think I've made all of $10 on Rumble, and I can't cash that out until I get at least 100 followers and I reach a certain threshold, whatever it is. I'm not sure, but click that follow button. I would greatly appreciate it. And those of you on YouTube, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and all that happy stuff. I hate saying that stuff, though. I sound like every other YouTuber out there, and I'm trying to bring a little something different to this sort of thing, because when you have to talk about politics when you're talking about the market and you talk about money, because they go hand in hand. The things that go on in the world largely affect everything in the market, and we all know this. But when we're discussing world events and politics, I try my best to stay fair and take the middle of the road approach, because everybody's welcome here. Everybody's opinions are welcome. You want to comment something in the chat that might not be widely agreed upon, that's fine. But let's be respectful, okay? I think that's the problem that's growing more and more in America, is this firm division. And in some cases, rightfully so, because there's some loony stuff going on both sides. Let's just be real. You know, if you are hard left or hard right, man, life is just going to be a little difficult for you. Because these days, people wear their politics on their forehead. I remember back in the day, with my grandparents, their age, if you asked them who they voted for, somebody would get mad. There's none of your business. And I think that we really had more respect for each other back then when people did keep their politics to themselves. It's a little difficult to do that these days. Just the way the media eggs on the hatred. But let's be real. The media has never been in the business, well, they haven't in a long time, been in the business of relaying actual news. Their job here lately is to stoke the fire and sow division. But that's why we're here on places like Rumble and YouTube, because freedom of speech allows us to disseminate information on a more authentic level, as opposed to most of your mainstream media sources. And I don't care if it's CNN or Fox News. They both have a hand in propagandizing a lot of things that go on. I mean, they all have agendas based on who works there, who owns them, you know. But what I have noticed is that depending on who is in the White House, you can pretty much count on whatever news source aligns with the party that's in office, the party that's in control. You can pretty much count on the news source at the time that aligns with those beliefs to deliver you mostly fact. And it's always the opposition that's always giving you the most propaganda. When you have a Republican in office, the liberal news is out of their mind. When you have a Democrat in office, that's when Fox News gets busted lying. And they have. Let's just be real. So, I try and just bring a more fair approach and more honest approach, because, you know, that's what our media is lacking these days, is integrity. Anyway, enough of my grandstanding. We have 9 minutes until the opening bell. Let's see what Yahoo's saying.
With, a war launch, and that is something that will ultimately be regulated. The good news for anybody participating in the markets right now is that Congress is very slow to act, so I don't expect a change in the near term.
Just so you know, if you can't see, because everything's so tiny on my screen, on the far right is Yahoo, Yahoo Finance. The middle is Bloomberg, and the left, right next to me, is obviously Fox Now.
And that's the future of our regulatory agenda, and it is coming. But for right now, I think they're safe because there's so much else going on.
Yeah, they're flooding the zone, so to speak. Ambassador Ginsburg, Henrietta, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. Good to be with you.
Coming up on Morning Brief, we'll bring you today's top trending tickers and count you down to the opening bell.
Yep, opening bell just around the corner. Fox News on a commercial. Well, it's not Fox News, it's Fox Now.
More
Bloomberg.
The Iranians have, or how little the Iranians have left to fire.
I wonder about the potential of the Iranian people to overthrow this regime. Surely they have a secret police force, they have a morality police, they have the IGRC watching, listening,
Have you
and
guys
control.
seen the videos of the people celebrating in the streets of Iran? I posted a video yesterday that straight up busted NBC lying. They posted a video calling it people in the streets of Iran mourning the loss of the supreme leader, when it turned out the footage that they captioned as such was the funeral of Soleimani in 2020. They straight up lied. NBC. I made a little video about it.
In an open revolt against the regime since at least 2009. And the hope is that if you destroy the IRGC, you do a lot of damage to the Basij, you decapitate the leadership, it will provide an avenue for people to get out into the streets. They will no longer fear the regime as they once did. But as you point out, Matt, this is a regime that was going to use heavy fire against their own people, killing somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 people. Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see what the Iranian people do. I know that Reza
And that's what people are actually protesting for. I see people on the left all over social media saying this was an unprovoked war. Unprovoked, huh? Well, they didn't exactly attack us. But right or wrong, what we're doing in Iran is to help the people ultimately. I mean, have you seen Iran in the 70s? They looked a lot like America. They looked like they were free. They looked like a regular free country. Now, since they've been living under a theocratic nonsense, you know how it is for the women over there. It's horrible. That's what they're celebrating in the streets. The only people that are angry about this supreme leader's death are those who, well, they're usually radical Muslims, right? They're the ones that like to engage in things that shouldn't. I got demonetized for saying certain things, but we all know what I'm talking about, don't we? Anyway, comment in the chat. Any kind of stock or crypto you want me to pull up and check out, I will be glad to. We're going to go back to Bloomberg for a second. Not if they're just playing commercials. Let's see what Fox Now is saying.
They expected that Iran was going to basically lay down their weapons, and I believe they thought this was going to be a 24 to 48-hour war. But unfortunately...
Well, dude's dead in less than 24 hours. I call that a success.
This is extremely vulnerable because unlike other countries where they have clean ingress and egress points to the internet, because we basically created the backbone, we don't have that luxury, which means every listener and every citizen of the United States can basically be a direct target. And I think that's the type of attack you're going to see is start going after individuals, starting to cause impact to citizens instead of going after critical infrastructure immediately.
So what should folks need to know, and what is the government doing to minimize the potential for such an attack?
The first thing, which depending on what you do and where you work, is recognizing that you are a target. I know a lot of people are like, oh, no one's going to worry about me. But with AI and in these types of warfares,
You'll hear about Anthropic. Of course, everybody has by now. Anthropic basically backed out because they didn't want their products to be used for the way that the Pentagon wanted to use them for. What do you think about that? What do you think about AI controlling, well, I wouldn't say controlling, but having a heavy hand in our military? Would you give over power to AI to control launching of missiles and stuff like that? I find it very interesting that a company actually had the integrity to say no. But I mean, the thing is somebody, if they don't, somebody else is just going to do it. I'm pretty sure Trump wants Elon and Grok to get involved in that. What do you think about that? That's wild to me.
And to help her,
and Bloomberg's on commercial.
Is infrastructure or maybe even larger companies. But how large of a concern is it? And then to that end, what is the government doing right now?
So the longer this war goes on, the bigger the concern. I believe right now you're seeing some cyber attacks, but we haven't seen a huge increase yet from Iran because they're still focusing on the kinetic and getting a handle on that. But I believe if this continues another 8 to 10 days, that's really when cyber is going to start targeting individuals. And then if it goes on for another 20 or 30 days, then I think you're going to start seeing critical infrastructure potentially also being targeted. And what's going on right now with the government is just trying to just raise awareness, is just making people understand that you just need to put better security in place as opposed to trying to be an alarmist. But the reality is it's a little too late because we just don't have a lot of the laws and other protection mechanism that other countries have. So a lot of it, unfortunately, is being pushed down on the individual as opposed to the government being able to really lock down and control access like they're doing in Iran or Israel.
I also wanted to step back and take a look at the larger picture. From your perspective as a former CIA analyst, the CIA really an integral part of
2 minutes till the bell.
At a real physical location, not a P.O. box. Choose from any of the thousands of addresses in our network and immediately upgrade your brand image. I
don't really care about the commercials. I'm going to go back to Bloomberg because they're pretty much on top of it when it comes to the bell.
Your credit tanked, and now you have 3 roommates. Well, you're in luck because
They're
Self will
all
securely
commercial,
report your
aren't they?
positive rent payments to all 3 credit bureaus for free. So you can increase your credit score and improve your living.
Well, how about we take a look at, silver fell below 90. Wow. That's because of that dollar right there. If you aren't already aware, when you see the price of silver, not the value stays the same. The price of silver rising, you're watching the dollar fall. But seeing as how the dollar is rising, that's precisely why silver is tanking a little bit. Gold too. I just don't have it pulled up. Bitcoin has been clawing its way up little by little.
Trading, and this is the first day, obviously, of trading since the U.S. and Israel launched their attacks on Iran. S&P futures down 1.1%. So you may have expected a bigger drop than this. NASDAQ futures off 1.4%.
There we go.
You can see and hear the opening bells on the New York Stock Exchange, FIFA ringing the opening bell, Atlanta there, and also on the NASDAQ market side. Suffice it to say, we're focused much more on the action than the bell ringers today, as for the most part, you're going to see drops, although there are a couple of sectors where obviously you'll see some real strong green arrows.
Yeah, and I assume one of them you're referring to is energy. That's an obvious one. With the price of oil moving higher, the catalyst for getting new highs in the oil price this morning, I think the biggest move in about 4 years were those headlines on LNG from Qatar being shut down. It's the oil energy infrastructure we're paying close attention to. ExxonMobil up 4.8%, 4.2%, Chevron 2%, Halliburton about 0.8%, Matt.
All right, defense stocks are another sector that's higher as traders prepare for what
Palantir's
could be a
up
prolonged
2.5%.
war in the Middle East, with Iran's security chief ruling out negotiations with the U.S., with the U.S. president saying this could actually go on multiple weeks rather than just one. Let's bring in Marianne Bartel, Sanctuary Wealth Chief Investment Strategist. Marianne, I wonder, first off, what's your take on the moves today? We've heard from a number of people already that these geopolitical issues have historically, at least in the last few years, caused ripples and may present a buying opportunity.
Well, I would agree with the buying opportunity. One of the things throughout my career, and something I actually learned from Dick McCabe, who was a technician at Merrill Lynch for a really long time, is events like this don't change the trend. And markets have been trending up. And what we wrote in our weekly today is that our volume indicators recently hit a record all-time high. Breadth of the market has hit a record all-time high. So I don't think these events are going to derail the bull market. I think they are presenting buying opportunities. And I really like how the market's trading. It's not a harsh sell-off. I like when oil is up that the energy stocks can rally. I like that the defense stocks are rallying. So I think the underlying internals and fundamentals, because we've just had, fourth quarter earnings, which are really strong. Even Mag 7 had very strong earnings. So I think the underpinnings of the market are very strong. But obviously, when you're watching the news, this can be very unsettling for investors. But we keep saying to have patience and to be fearless.
Often when people talk about the spillover effects into equity markets, they speak about it in terms of what's happening with oil. That if oil prices go high enough, they're sustained there for long enough, it puts stress on the consumer, and therefore risk assets look less appetizing. What are you looking for when oil starts to become concerning to you?
So the technicals work really well on commodities. And what we've been recently been saying is that before all of this happened, that we could see oil going up to about 70 to 75. And we're trading in that range. I don't even think we've hit 75 yet. But we have to be cognizant that things can change if we do breach that 75, the next level is 80, and there's a lot of resistance there. So I know a lot of people are saying, you know, if things get really bad, you can see 100. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that, but the market is telling me we're not going to see 100, at least not now. I think there's a good chance that we actually stay in the 70 to 75 range,
That's
which
because
actually
we've
wouldn't
been
have
drill,
such
baby,
a
drill.
negative impact on earnings or on the consumer.
If we take a look at the group ranked returns on the S&P 500, you can see energy obviously is a beneficiary of that, but everything else is down, and consumer discretionary is the biggest loser. And to me, this highlights an interesting tug-of-war that we've seen in treasuries. Initially, investors diving into treasuries, buying them as a safe haven, and then concerns about the rising price of oil lead to concerns about inflation, lead to concerns about what's going to happen in this economy. How do you view it?
So in terms of inflation, I do think we're percolating inflation. And you saw that in the PPI numbers. And if you look at raw industrial commodities,
Bitcoin.
the metal components,
come on, claw your way up,
they're
baby.
ready to really have a big breakout, which means PPI is going to stay under pressure, and that's a good leading indicator of where CPI is going. So I do think there's still underlying pressures for inflation, but I still have a sense that interest rates want to go down. And so even though we have inflation, I guess I'd call it the good part of inflation, not the bad part of inflation. And having some inflation is actually good for earnings, particularly on the producer side. But it is something that we're going to have to be cognizant of, I think, as we go out later this year into next year.
It does feel, though, that this isn't happening in isolation, that it's a market that was looking for reasons to sell off. We saw that in past weeks with the angst of AI, of private credit, and now add to that what's happening with geopolitics, too. Marian, does this accelerate a trend to look for places to hide out in this equity market? The rotation that's already been happening, does this change the flavor of it, or does it accelerate it?
It's a great question, because it really has been technology, right? The leadership of the market has been correcting, or the growth part of the market, and you're seeing the value part of the market rally, right? That's where you've seen healthcare, you've seen staples, you originally also saw financials, banks, and energy. I don't think that tech has ended its bull market. I think it's
I've got quite a crypto bag. I don't know about you.
To a bottom, and we're going to rally again. But the breakout in energy stocks is real. There really is something happening within that space.
Busted
Other
through
pockets of the
66K.
market that I've really liked are the metals, and gold itself, silver itself, and the underlying metals. And I think that's a whole new bull market. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for investors to really get some exposure for some long-term gains.
We'd seen the Russell 2000, the small caps outperforming. If inflation is percolating, even if it's the good kind, right, the Fed can't necessarily cut rates. Is that bad for small caps?
I don't think so. What we've said is that there really is a positive shift in small caps.
Okay, I've got a little bit of news for you. JP Morgan has warned that stablecoins could put trillions in deposits at risk. Yep, of course they would say that. It's not in their interest to support crypto. Let's see. I've got quite a few little stories that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, JP Morgan says crypto market structure bill could be approved by mid-year, serve as a positive catalyst in the second half of the year. JP Morgan analyst said U.S. crypto market structure legislation could be approved by mid-year and may become a positive catalyst for markets in the second half of the year. If passed, it will reshape market structure by providing regulatory clarity, ending regulation by enforcement, promoting tokenization, and facilitating greater institutional participation. And you know what's interesting about that is if you take a look into the crypto market, you will see that there are a lot of companies that are now starting to tokenize their stocks. Why I'm not seeing too many of them now, I don't know, but I'll find some. The thing is almost every one of them that I see is performing rather well. There's a lot of tokenization going on with the stocks. People are understanding better now that blockchain is, I hate to sound redundant, but it is the future, guys. It really is. If you understand it, see, there's Tesla's tokenized stock up 0.5%, not that big of a deal, but it's still up. Let's be clear. There's no such thing as an expert in the crypto world. It's too young of a technology. But if you understand anything about the crypto space, you understand it's complicated. And you also understand that whoever created this, Satoshi Nakamoto guy, whoever created Bitcoin was a genius. Smarter than me. I'm betting smarter than most of the people watching these streams. Yeah, well, he's either dead or he's a damn time traveler or an alien or something crazy. But, I mean, the wallet that he's left behind that hasn't been touched, yeah, nobody in their right mind would leave that alone. So I believe whoever Satoshi was, I believe he's dead. NVIDIA popping. We're still looking largely red. Energy sector is doing pretty good. The tech sector is doing okay. Let's see what the big wiener is for the day. It's always something ridiculous. Viewtran Group up 1,000,000%. Woodbrook Group up 250,000%. Congratulations if you own any of these. That's nuts. NVIDIA with their almost $4.5 trillion market cap. Apple seems to be creeping its way up a little bit, but will they overtake NVIDIA? Hopefully not by June. I have a bet going that NVIDIA will be the biggest company in the world in June. Well, it already is. Seems like a no-brainer. Hopefully Apple does not catch up. I don't see them doing that. Oil took a little bit of a dive. Ethereum's kicking it. Silver trying to make a little bit of a recovery, while the dollar kind of just it's retracing a little bit, but I got a feeling it's going to pop back up. I mean, war is good for the economy, isn't it? How do you feel about the war in Iran? Comment below. I don't ever get any commenters on my videos for some reason. Maybe I'm just boring. Or maybe I just don't have enough people who are watching. Share this video, would you? And give me a like. Click that follow button.
Loss in 500 feet. Rerouting.
Make it. Let's see what Fox Now is saying. They're not saying anything. Go back over to Yahoo.
Picture. So he said even though he does see a tactical upside scenario in the short run, in the near term, he does say that the one big risk is those higher energy prices.
Brooke, what else is on your watch list today?
One more time, Sazi, what was that?
What else is on your watch list? I mean, there's an abundance of things. I mean, I've seen all you guys, what you're posting on our live vlog. It's just so much going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the next few days, my mindset is really focused in on what exactly we'll see at the price of the pump. We're expecting anywhere.
I got some news for any of you XRP holders. Ripple unlocks 1 billion tokens from XRP escrow. In recent XRP news, Ripple has released another 1 billion XRP from its escrow system in 3 tranches. Whale Alert reported transactions of 200 million, 300 million, and 500 million XRP. Total value exceeded $1.37 billion at the current market price. The company carries out these releases each month as part of its long-running liquidity and supply plan. That's pretty smart. Data from XRPL services showed that Ripple now holds around 33 billion XRP. This amount equals about 32% of the total token supply and is valued above $45 billion at present market rates. These holdings remain one of the largest single positions in the entire crypto ecosystem, and they continue to draw market attention during each scheduled unlock. Although the release was large, XRP showed almost no price reaction. The token saw a slight move of 0.9% from the day's opening, which kept it in a narrow range through the morning session. At press time, XRP price was trading at $1.36. Let's check it out, shall we? Go ahead and pull up XRP. I know Cardano did a little bit not bad. Oh yeah, XRP's running. Well, they're all running right now. All cryptos are running right now. This is great. This is great for any of you bag holders out there. I got a bag of Ethereum or Cardano and Bitcoin, and I bought when Bitcoin was at 95, so I might be holding until next cycle, which is fine. It's not a loss until you sell, baby. All right, look at that, busting through that resistance. Let's go. Let's go. Where will it stop? Let me put something up here. Commercials. Fox Now is saying.
Thank you.
Each day, sir, this war is.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, you spoke to Indian Prime Minister. You spoke to the Indian Prime Minister.
Yes, I did.
Yes. Can you
I did want to play out the very brief statement that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shared in English just moments ago. And I also wanted to share this with you. This is some new video that we have right here. And I did want to just share a little bit more as missile strikes have hit the Iranian capital of Tehran once again. This as Israel and the U.S. expand its war there. Meanwhile, Iran and its allied groups continue to fire missiles at Israel and U.S. targets, as well as other Arab states in the Middle East. The attacks have intensified following the killing of Iran's supreme leader. So this is some new footage from Tehran as we continue to follow all of those developments. This also comes as President Trump has stated that Operation Epic Fury could last 5 weeks. We are going to head to just a brief break, but we have a lot more news to get to. We'll be right back.
Let's see what Bloomberg is saying.
Location in the oil market, and I'd like to hopefully see
oil
some
looking
plans
like a pretty
to
good buy right
at least
now.
get some tankers moving, maybe reroute ships. You don't have to go through Iranian waters to get in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. That's just the international shipping lanes. That's the path they've decided on, but there are other ways to go, and so it would be good to see some workarounds and plans in the mix for this, so that the oil market does have some understanding of what's going to be happening in the next 4 weeks.
The disruption, though, Ellen, does go beyond just the Strait of Hormuz. When you look at Qatar shutting the world's largest LNG export plant, when the Saudis are dealing with attacks on their oil refineries, how are you thinking about Iran's ability and what they've done with attacking upstream oil infrastructure?
Yeah, this is a big issue. I think Qatar's closed this plant. There are a lot of dangers, even if Iran isn't outright striking these places. It's said that the damage that occurred to Ras Tanura, the biggest refinery in Saudi Arabia, was due to debris from a drone that was destroyed. Now, whether that drone was headed for the refinery or not, these kinds of things are going to happen. I mean, an offshore oil platform was likely hit, an Emirati one. These things are going to happen either as direct hits or as side effects. And so that also needs to be taken into account. I think that if Iran is not going to go all out on the oil infrastructure of neighboring states unless its oil infrastructure itself is attacked. And thus far, we haven't seen any Israeli or U.S. attacks directly on Iranian oil infrastructure. It's really just been contained to military and political targets. If that holds, then I think that the damage will be minimal, and we won't see any long-term disruption to oil supplies as long as we can get traffic through, through that area moving.
Ellen, you, as I said, wrote the book Saudi Inc., and you have a great perspective on the Middle East. I thought it was fascinating that Russia and China responded by saying, essentially, how dare you, America? This breaks international law. And then the GCC responded by saying, how dare you, Iran, stop attacking us?
Whoa. What is going on over on Yahoo?
To punish its neighbors should dramatically drop.
General, from a pure investing standpoint, markets are declining here today, as you would expect, but they're not declining more, I think, on the assumption of this could end over the next 4 to 5 weeks, like President Trump has outlined. Do you share that sentiment?
It could end sooner than that. Really, it depends on the people in Iran, and it depends on the Iranian leadership. And it depends, as I said, on this struggle between the United States taking out the Iranian missile assets and the Iranians' ability to cause chaos in the region. So you never know how something like this might end, but right now we do have air superiority. I don't see that going away. We're not losing aircraft, and even though there may be supposed shortage of precision strike munitions and Patriot missiles and so forth for defense, when we have air superiority, we can go in without all the precision strike and long-range missiles. We can continuously maintain cover over the missile launching sites, and they will be destroyed. It's just a matter of what the rate of destruction is.
General, for those without any of your experience, can you take us through the planning and execution for an operation like this? How expansive and detailed is it?
Well, it has to be very, very detailed, because you have to imagine this, that you have to have, first you have to move the logistics forward. So you need basing, and you need bombs and missiles pre-positioned. You have to then move the aircraft in. You have to have landing and support for the pilots. And then you have to begin the detailed planning of the offensive portion of this. And that planning requires knowing which aircraft come from which airfields at which time to strike which targets with which weapons, and do they or do they not need air-to-air refueling to complete their mission and return? And if so, who will provide that, where and when? So it's all very precisely timed. And supporting this is the intelligence collection system that develops the targets. And then also supporting this is the defensive system. So there has to be a coordination with air defense assets in the region. Apparently, somebody in Kuwait didn't get the word exactly. But all of this is immaculately coordinated. We're still running off an air tasking order, so we launch, we recover, we assess, we relaunch.
Trying like hell to place an order, and Coinbase is being stupid.
Under Admiral Cooper in the region.
General, what is, we're still in the early innings of this, but you're starting to see reports, whether it's on credible ones on social media or credible news agencies, that this has now started to spread to the Middle East more widely. How concerned are you that that is already starting to happen?
Well, that is the Iranian strategy. What they want to do is cause chaos in the region. They believe if they can hit enough targets in the region, civilians, ports, whatever, airports, that the political pressure will be on the United States to stop the operation, call a halt to it, because there's too much disruption. And sure, the disruption is a problem, but the answer to that, if we have it, the answer to that is attack faster, more intensively, more accurately, and take out the Iranian capacity to interfere with their neighbors. They have a large inventory of rockets. Some of these were expended in June.
Yeah, I'm seeing some news reporting that We're running out of munitions to fight in the war. Shut up. Our military dwarfs the next 5 countries. Okay, we spend more on our military than the next 5 countries combined. We're not hurting for munitions. It's all propaganda. What's Trump saying over here? Or is this a recap of something he said before? Probably, but let's listen in anyway.
Using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America" or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America.
You know, love him or hate him, this is ultimately a good thing for Iran. I know it's hard for anyone out there who doesn't like Trump and doesn't support him. I know it's difficult for you to wrap your little walnut around the idea that this is a good thing. But if you know anything about Iran, you know that they have been living under ridiculous situations. I'm going to play you a video that I actually made this morning. And all this is just a video that, like, I read a script that I wrote. I wrote this on Facebook. And, yeah. Just give me 1 second and I will pull it up. But I want more people to see this video because I think I encapsulated the general feel of things. I'm going to share with you a post I made on social media. First of all, I'm going to show you this picture because it references a picture. Images like this you see all over Facebook, right? Well, let's back it up a little bit. All right, here we go. Oh, nope, never mind. I'm a dumbass. I still haven't gotten this, I still haven't gotten the hang of this program, but I'm getting there. Alright, let's try this. I'm going to share with you a post I made on social media. First of all, I'm going to show you this picture because it references a picture. Images like this you see all over Facebook, right? Well, I understand that these people think they're supporting humanitarianism. I understand that they think they're fighting for a good cause, but what they don't understand is that what they tend to fight for is widely condemned by the world. If you are against this war in Iran, you're ultimately supporting a regime that oppresses women. If you are so tone deaf as to support Hamas and Palestine and you're homosexual, then take a trip to one of these places and see if they don't toss your ass off the roof of a building. I understand you don't support that, but you are, by proxy, supporting those actions. These people you're fighting for would kill you if given the chance. They don't care about your silly little protest, and all you are is a tool of the media, selectively outraged while constantly contradicting yourselves. Keep believing the garbage your television pumps into your empty skulls, and one day America will be the place where women have to cover themselves up or be beaten to death. America will be the place where homosexuality is illegal, as it is in the countries you foolishly protest for. It boggles the mind if you have any sense of a realistic worldview. The only people I see doing this, the things depicted in the image I just showed you, are either liberal women or kids that don't have a clue. Anyone else is only doing it because something Donald Trump. The man could cure cancer, and these hypocrites would find some loony way to be against it. You can scoff at that all you want. Everyone knows it's exactly what would happen. But I do understand your motive. I truly do. You believe you're fighting for justice and human rights, and that is a noble cause if it were based in reality. It is not. The atrocities in Iran that have occurred over the last 40 years have hopefully come to an end with the death of their supreme leader. If you're against that action, I invite you to go live in a country under the same sort of theocratic nonsense that we are hopefully stamping out. I don't believe it will be a 100% successful endeavor because it is so deeply ingrained into their current political structure, but anyone with half a brain should be supportive of the liberation of Iran. Just Google pictures of Iran in the 70s. They looked a lot like America before the Islamic Republic took over and implemented their oppressive laws against women. Support that, you're clearly out of your minds, and that is why you will likely lose the next election. You need to move more to the center if you ever hope to win over a majority of any demographic. Those are the facts. Deny them at your peril. So what do you think? You know, it hurts me. It hurts me to know that there are people out there that don't even understand what they're protesting. They're just against Trump, so anything he does is bad, which is such a myopic worldview. Like, grow up, man. Understand what's going on here. It makes me sad. It makes me sad to think that this has gone on for so long in Iran. And it also makes me sad that there are people here that are so uneducated and don't even care about the facts enough. They just want to protest against whatever Trump is doing because they hate Trump. There's no way in hell he could possibly do anything right. The Epstein files is another one. Like, look, everybody who's guilty of doing something should definitely be brought to justice. But if you think for 1 second that we'll ever get the entire truth out of it, you're delusional. And the thing about it is everyone on the left I see keeps on talking about how Trump was mentioned the most in the Epstein files. Well, the guy, Epstein, did nothing but collect blackmail. Of course Trump is going to be mentioned the most. He's the one who turned him in. Like, I don't understand why people can't connect these dots. I take that back. I do kind of understand it. They don't want to believe that he's innocent. And that's just hatred, and that's just malice, and it's just wrong. I mean, the truth matters.
Not least because we believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement.
Negotiate with Iran? Yeah, I'm pretty sure every president has tried that.
Nuclear weapon. But Iran is striking British interests nonetheless and putting British people at huge risk, along with our allies across the region.
Do something about it then.
That is the situation we face today.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the UK right now, especially if you have an opinion. They actually are putting people in jail over Facebook posts.
Lives. We have British jets in the air as part of coordinated defensive operations.
Good.
Which have already successfully intercepted Iranian strikes. But the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots, or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
Good.
To prevent Iran firing missiles across the region.
Good.
Killing innocent civilians.
Good.
Putting British lives at risk. And hitting countries that have not been involved.
Awesome.
The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives.
I heard France already surrendered.
That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region. And we will also bring experts from Ukraine together with our own experts to help Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones attacking them. I want to be very clear. We all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons. We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But Iran is pursuing a scorched earth strategy.
Yeah.
So we are supporting the collective self-defense of our allies and our people in the region.
Well, you see, these other nations are just scared, and rightfully so, because, you know, China and Russia are way closer to them than they are to us. China and Russia don't want a homeland attack on America. They don't want none of that, which would be very difficult for them anyway. Their best bet would be to fire a bunch of nukes at us, but nobody's going to do that because then the entire world's going to light up.
That was the very latest from British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, as he stated that the U.S. can use British bases against Iran. He also stated that the United Kingdom will not take part in offensive strategies, but will in defensive strategies right there. We once again did want to let you know that coming up at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we are expecting to hear once again from UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer as he addresses the world on the developments in Iran. We also are continuing to keep a very close eye on the White House, as coming up
based
at
on
11
that, who
a.m.
gives a
Eastern
shit?
Time, President Trump will be participating
What is he going to tell us new?
in a Medal
Anything?
of Honor
Probably not.
ceremony, and we are also hearing that he will
The British
also
Prime Minister,
be addressing the issue of Operation Epic Fury at that time as well. We are going to be bringing you this live event in its entirety that is scheduled to begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We
Okay,
are
I
going to
might
head
stay
for a
on for
brief
that.
break, but before we do so, I did want to share this social media message from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, stating that I am in direct coordination with our federal intelligence and law enforcement partners as we continue to closely monitor and thwart any
Silver coming back
potential
up above
threats
90.
to the homeland. So we are continuing to follow all
XRP
of
off
those
the scale.
developments. This as the FBI is continuing to investigate a shooting that happened in Austin, Texas yesterday as
Ethereum.
well. and they're saying that they are looking into the possibility of a terrorist attack. So coming up after the break, we are going to be talking with a former DHS senior advisor on the latest developments, Chuck Marino. That conversation coming up in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Bitcoin ran up $2,000 in the last 30 minutes. That is 30 minutes. $2,000 in 30 minutes. Let's go, baby. Let's go up to 200,000. Wouldn't that be nice? Every time they play those damn songs, I get charged a nickel.
Today, maybe more like a quarter of them. In fact, few of them are probably filling up their tanks today. But they aren't able to fully pass along the increase in price because their competitors may not be filling up today. Their price may be lower. So
yeah, let's see what Bloomberg has to say. I'm about ready for my
These
first
are the B
smoke
shares
break.
down close to 4%. The conglomerate's operating profits fell nearly 30%. This is Warren Buffett's last quarter as CEO. Analysts noted the weakness in the company's insurance business. Let's run through some of the commodities right now. Of course, Brent crude up 7.6%, 78.48 a barrel. WTI American crude, that's up 6% right now, 71.29 a barrel. And then you have gold pairing the earlier gains, up 2% right now at $5,358 an ounce. And we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John
Dude,
Secretary.
Ethereum, look
Bloomberg
at that.
Business
Finally back
Flash.
above
Nora and
$2,000.
Alexis.
Thanks, John. So echoing that, we do have pretty much red all across the screen. S&P 500 down by about 0.2%. That tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 falling by about 0.3%. But we have some individual stock movers on our mind. Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move today. I'm Nora Melinda with Alexis Christoforous, and we're joined by Bloomberg's Matthew Griffin. Tell us, what are you watching right now?
Well, Nora, you talked about red across your screen today, and one name I'm watching being hit particularly hard is American Airlines. This situation in the Middle East is really a triple whammy for airline stocks. They rely on crude oil to determine the price of the fuel they use, and Jefferies had a note out over the weekend that every 5% move in their estimate for jet fuel prices is a 35% swing in American earnings per share, so a really dramatic impact there. You also then look at potential hits to consumer confidence from the conflict that could cause people to pull back on travel and on just the travel chaos in the Middle East, although the direct exposure there a little bit lower for U.S. carriers. That has the stock down more than 4% today and extending a year-to-date drop to nearly 20%.
That's American Airlines.
Yeah, and I see other airlines are down, I guess, as well because of the same reasons you just outlined, including Delta Airlines. But Lockheed Martin, I guess, are people flocking to the defense stocks given this?
Absolutely.
Probably.
So Lockheed trading without a dividend, up about 4%, accounting for that. Also,
Lockheed Martin's doing
peers
great.
like Northrop Palantir also, so Defense AI. We were just talking about that. It's one of the few, you don't want to say bright spots in a conflict, but places where you're seeing green on the screen today.
I just had some call options expire worthless. $1,000
defense spending for
damn
2027.
call option expired worthless.
Also, you've got your
like
eyes on
literally
NVIDIA.
Yes, NVIDIA agreeing to invest $4 billion in Lumentum and Coherent, their data center optics companies, and that's bringing the stock a little bit higher, defying the slump, up about 1.9%.
Yeah, it needs to run over 200.
All right, thanks so much, Matthew. We appreciate it. Matthew Griffin here with some stock movers today. And for more conversations like this, subscribe to our Stock Movers Reports.
Ethereum
Listen for 5-minute audio reports on the biggest
It's like
winners
it's
and
stumbling
losers
a little
in
bit
the
near the
stock
2020
market.
mark.
Subscribe to Stock Movers on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen. In about a little less than an hour from now, we're expecting to hear from President Trump. He's at the White House today, and he is there for 3 medals of honor that he's going to be handing out. It's this award, or this Medal of Honor award. He's going to be handing
So the
3
stock
of those
heat
awards
map
out to
doesn't look
soldiers,
so
2
hot.
of them posthumously.
We got a little more green
in
than
a
we did
ceremony at
earlier.
the White House, but he
Still
is
more red
expected
than
to
anything.
speak about the
crypto
war
heat
with
map,
Iran. It
look
would
at
be the
that.
first time we are
It's
hearing
gorgeous.
from the president outside of the things that he's been putting on his social media. We did hear
Absolutely
earlier, though,
beautiful.
Nora, from the Defense Secretary, from the Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Does anybody have
about
any
this,
picks they'd like me to check
operation,
out?
Operation Operation Epic Fury. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, saying that Iran had a gun to our head as he defended this attack.
Right, and there was also some discussion about the fact
All right,
that
guys, I'm going to go on a smoke break.
Didn't want to say
I will still
too
be in the
much
chat
in terms of granularities as to not expose some of their plans to, quote, the enemy. So that's also been something that we are keeping an
shall
eye
return.
on. But to talk about this and more, we're joined by Dr. Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. There's been a lot of developments happening, a lot of things that happened through the weekend, and we're really seeing a lot of it spilling into today on Monday. Talk to us about what you're watching and what your main takeaways are of all these geopolitical tensions.
The first takeaway is how radically the character of war has changed. If you think about World War I, World War II, even Vietnam, warring parties did not go to take out the leadership of the opposing country on the first day. We did, and we did it. Secondly, the two things I'm watching very carefully is whether or not the U.S. Navy and the allies, including the Arab countries right in the Gulf, can secure the shipment of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. For now, for first couple of days, the shipment dropped, the oil prices went to 80. Our economy can live with oil at 80. It lived with oil at much higher prices. However, if it goes on for weeks and months, that's a different story because 20+% of global oil and good amount of LNG, liquefied natural gas, ship through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow strait. It's something like 2 miles or something like that. Now, luckily, there's a lot of product. There is oil that Saudi Arabia can ship to the Red Sea. Now, there's a problem with the Red Sea because of the Houthis, and Houthis are supported and equipped and trained by Iran. So you see the vicious circle here. So the strategic goal is to enact enough damage to the ruling regime in Iran so the transition to a non-Islamist regime, non-IRGC dominated regime starts to happen. And I think it's too early to tell whether or not this is going to happen, how fast and how messy it's going to be. Iran is messy historically and probably is going to be messy now. And finally, I'm watching the amounts of ammo the U.S. and the Israelis are shooting, be it missile defense, be it rockets, offensive rockets, bombs, etc. Because all this equipment is very expensive. This is why folks are investing in weapons companies. And the Pentagon, the U.S., needs a strategic supply of these weapon systems in Europe, in the Pacific, just in case. And this is a three-theater circus, three circus show that we're watching because certain amount of these weapon systems need to be preserved for Europe and for the Pacific.
And Dr. Cohen, when we look at what happens now, what happens next, right? What will the new regime in Iran look like? Even President Trump said that his picks for the next leader has been killed. So what can we expect from the new regime, and will it be any better and friendlier to global relations than the prior regime?
The main question is whether IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, are going to stay in power. This is a combination of the military, elite military, and secret police. So imagine the SS and Waffen-SS in Nazi Germany, or KGB and internal security troops in the Soviet Union. It is a characteristic of a totalitarian state where you have a merger of internal security and the military. The regular military, the Artesh, has not stepped in yet. And I believe that the U.S. and Israel are talking to folks inside Iran, be it supporters of the Shah. We heard chants for Reza Shah, Pahlavi, heir of the throne, the son of the last Shah, be it reformers. So there are a lot of people. How these people can sit together and rule Iran, that's a big question. But the elites, the urban folks, the educated folks, all repudiated the current theocratic dictatorship that killed 30,000 of their own people.
Dr. Ariel Cohen, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council on Iran, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. As we've been doing that interview, stocks have bounced well off their lows of the session. And in fact, the S&P 500 is now down just about 11 points. I'm taking a look at small caps. Russell 2000 actually just fractionally higher. We do have the Dow off by about 54 points. The NASDAQ 100 down about 60 points. So again, incredible resilience, as one investor, as one trader put it today, a lot of grit on Wall Street in the face of U.S. now launching war along with Israel against Iran. Alexis Christophorus along with Nora Melinda. You're listening to Bloomberg Intelligence.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom. With this Bloomberg Business Flash, we are well off the lows of the session right now. In fact, overshadowing stocks at the moment, Treasury yields. And this is an inflation story. You have the ISM gauge of prices paid for manufacturing inputs jumping to 70.5. That's the highest level since overall inflation peaked about 4 years ago. And so the immediate reaction with the 2-year, which is more policy reactive, I always say, that's up 9 basis points at 347. The 10-year is 10 basis points higher right now. That is at 4.03%. So inflation, for the moment, the big worry here. Traders grappling with the risk that the fighting with Iran disrupts energy supplies, and that also would stoke inflation. So Brent crude surging close to 8%, over $78 a barrel, and some of the energy giants are benefiting right now. ExxonMobil, those shares up 1.5%. You have Chevron shares right now. They are up 1.5%. Higher oil typically squeezes margins of refiners. Keep an eye on them. Marathon Petroleum, Valero Energy among them. We have the defense contractors, Lockheed Martin. Those shares, they are rallying. Along with RTX, those shares up 4.1% right now. And then the travel stocks, let's pick on United Airlines. They're down almost 3% as a result of all this. And we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500, 20 points lower. The Dow down 142 points, and the NASDAQ 100 to 89 points lower. I was almost going to say I wouldn't be surprised if we turned green.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you just woke up and looked at the markets, you would have no idea what's going on around the world. That it's just not playing out in the markets right now.
Right. We did see, you pointed out the Russell earlier, looking at those small caps. They were earlier a touch in the green. So we'll have to see if we're able to see this market pairing these declines substantially. But right now, still red on the screen. Norma Linda here with Alexis Christoforous in for Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney. We've really been keeping an eye on these markets because of all the geopolitical tensions happening in the Middle East. We've got U.S., Israel, Iran in focus. And we want to break a little bit of this down as to how it may affect markets more broadly with Louis Navellier. He's chairman and chief investment officer at Navellier and Associates. Talk to us a bit about what you make of some of the price dynamics that we're equity markets so far.
Well, obviously, this is a buying opportunity because the war will be over sooner than later, and it will remove a lot of uncertainty. Now, I realize that there's a new regime has to take over, but I have quite a few Persian friends, and everybody's ecstatic by what's going on.
So, Louis, if it's a buying opportunity, how choosy must we be, and what would you be looking at buying?
Well, obviously, the defense stocks I recommend are going to benefit. They're going to have to reload everything they're launching right now. So that's Elbit Systems, ESLT, Plantair, PLTR, and then we like Howmet Aerospace, HWM. We have a lot of gold stocks, over 20 gold stocks. That's mostly from central bank buying pressure. So we think gold will continue to be an oasis because there's a lack of credibility with some central banks, not ours, but the others. And finally, it's anything with earnings. It's this was a stunning earnings announcement season. And I noticed the analysts are still revising their estimates higher. So those positive analyst estimates in the upcoming weeks will drive stocks higher.
Louis, we've been dealing with a period of uncertainty, it feels like, for quite a while, whether it be tariffs, inflation, the rate outlook, and now these geopolitical tensions that we're seeing continuing to escalate and develop. What are some behavioral biases that you think investors should potentially guard against during times of crisis-driven market swings?
Well, your best defense is always a strong offense of fundamentally superior stocks. And it got a little confusing in the fourth quarter because from October 22nd to mid-November, there was a big short covering rally and a lot of crap went up. But crap doesn't float very long. And as we started this year, it reverted right back to quality. And this year was very much like last year. It was data centers, Eli Lilly, and a bunch of gold stocks that overpowered our portfolio. So we've been very resilient on down days. Again, the gold stocks help a lot. The earnings help. So we're not worried at all. Obviously, we might have to have some more energy picks, but I'd like to see the prices settle down. Oil does go up this time of year anyway because of rising seasonal demand. But, we are removing uncertainty in the world. And so I think a few weeks from now, we're going to think this was a good development. Obviously, we have to have somebody credible running Iran, and we got to welcome them back into the world community after this.
Well, certainly it seems like the market is thinking the way you're thinking today, Louis, with the market moderately lower, the VIX now at 21. But outside of what's happening in the Middle East, we've got a jobs report, which on a normal, quote unquote, normal week would sort of be the highlight of the week. How important is that February jobs report on Friday going to be, and how market moving might it be given the landscape now?
It's a big deal because everybody's still insecure about layoffs from AI. The tech companies announced quite a few recently, and Christopher Waller, the Federal Reserve governor, that predicted that we had a jobs problem well before it happened. Actually went on Bloomberg for 30 minutes and explained it, and then everything got revised down. And so he seems to be a little worried. He thought January might have been a little inflated on the private sector. And so if we do get a sloppy payroll report, that just means we'll get Waller will push for a March rate cut. I don't know if we'll get it, but he'll be pushing for it. And you can see market rates have meandered lower, and so that helps a lot. Now, the ISM report today is obviously great news, too, on manufacturing. The components are outstanding, backlog and orders, and
yep,
that's a phenomenal report, and it's welcome relief because we need the economy to broaden out. We have a lot of onshoring, and hopefully the manufacturing sector picks up because we've been carried by the service sector.
All right, Louis Navalier, the chairman and chief investment officer at Navalier and Associates. Thanks so much for coming on and for putting this market in perspective for us this morning, because it's a market that has me scratching my head a little bit, Nora, because we're lower, right, but nowhere near where you might imagine we'd be, especially when you were looking at futures, which, by the way, were not exactly falling off a cliff,
right?
But they were sharply lower. And now commodities. Let's move over there for a moment. I'm zoning in on precious metals here on the Bloomberg terminal. Silver down about 4%. Copper down 1.5%. Spot gold up about 1%. Who's going to put it all in perspective? The one and the only, Mike McGlone, who has been a very busy man all weekend long. Bloomberg Intelligence senior commodities strategist. Mike, thanks. Every time I look up, you're on my screen. Mike, why? First of all, why is silver down so much?
Because it went up too much. The key thing about silver is it's been the best performing commodity over the last couple of years. It's up a lot. It's got a good fundamental story, but now it's just too expensive. And the key thing about silver, it almost always underperforms gold when volatility picks up. And we're seeing a slight pickup in stock market volatility. As you mentioned, it's only slight so far. But the bottom line is even gold's just so expensive. And the previous guest mentioned, we're probably getting a more clear world within a week or two. Once if Iran's subdued, this whole bid for gold that kicked in 2022 with the unlimited friendship is losing its luster.
Right.
So what do you take away from the activity that we're seeing in oil markets? No surprise to see them higher, but earlier I was looking at Brent crude topping $82 a barrel. Now we're seeing it at about 78.83 right now as we speak. But talk to me about what your expectations are there in terms of activity when we kind of base this off of historical experiences.
That's because of the dollar's activity.
We need a sustainable supply cut, or just there's some problem with supply in the Middle East from this event for crude oil to stay above last year's high. You mentioned Brent. The last year's high was $82.63. We've just had a chance to sell there, maybe hedge there. By hedge,
struggling to get over that 20,
production in the world now shifting
mark
to the Western Hemisphere. To put that in context,
Bitcoin
U.S. and Canada alone have a supply demand surplus running 8 million barrels a day.
Come
on a good year, maybe Iran could export 2 million barrels a day. And all they're doing is saying, "Thank you, we'll
got
sell
to pump it up."
More supply. So to me, this is a rally to sell.
I would totally play that song.
I can't predict
if
if
they
something
wouldn't
really
hit me
bad
with a
happens.
copyright.
But by the end of the week, if the U.S. military does not completely subdue Iran,
NVIDIA doing all right.
Their offensive abilities, which would be unusual.
Looks like the rest of the market's got a little bit more green going on.
This is a short-term blip in crude oil. The key thing is a bigger picture is, remember the bottom line is, Mr. Trump has an election in November, and what does he want? Probably lower energy prices.
Exactly.
Don't we all?
We don't yet know what the impact's going to be,
look,
at the gas.
We're going to have to just expect that gas prices are probably going to go up. And I don't know about you, but I'm fine with that. For what we're getting in return, the liberation of the people of Iran, I mean, I'm sorry, but that's priceless. And if we do any good in the world, this is one of those times. This is one of those times where policing the world is actually a good thing. Generally speaking, I'm not for it. I think we should mind our own business by and large. But when you come across a situation like Iran, nobody else is doing anything because everybody else is too chicken shit. I mean, that's why you just heard the Prime Minister of the UK saying, we're not going to be involved in anything offensive, but we'll support you guys. That's exactly what Russia and China are doing as well. They'll support Iran, but they won't dare strike us. I say that. But if they ever did, that's all she wrote. That would be a bad situation. That's something we definitely don't want. Obviously, it would be best if we could stick to diplomacy and actually have some talks with Iran. But they've been I'm stuttering over my words because I'm very passionate about this. But Iran has been doing what they've been doing, what we're fighting against for the last 40 years. It's about time that somebody do something, because nobody's had the balls to do anything. I'm quite shocked that we finally grew some balls to do it. Who can we credit for that? Gee, I wonder. That's why you got half of the country who are protesting against it, because they're too stupid to see beyond their own biases. And that's what sickens me the most about American people. I'm an American. I live in South Carolina, born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. I am a patriot. However, I'm actually planning to move out of the country myself. I'm moving to Thailand because things are way cheaper. Plus, your traditional gender roles are alive and well in Thailand.
Is, as you mentioned, Julie, 20% comes through that area of the world. We will see if that puts petroleum and coal back into expansion. It hasn't been there since September when it was finally an expansion after a period of not. So the prices coming through. The questions are are the tariffs finally being passed through full stop? And then on top of the recent conflict in the Middle East, we also have a landscape of IEEP tariffs have been struck down, but you have Section 232 tariffs. You have Section 122 tariffs, which are 150 days in duration. So pricing, I wouldn't expect to take a big leap down. My hope is that we continue to stay in expansion. The customer inventory index, we've been talking about that every month. That's very, very low. It's at 38.8. It's up a bit. Hopefully that is what is triggering orders, but what we really need is certainty around pricing for the customers of these sectors to be comfortable ordering. Yeah. And on top of that, the conflict, certainly for oil and maybe other goods that come through that area. Anyone's guess what's going to happen there.
Let's see what Fox Now is saying.
It's still alive in a portion of Gaza, which is troubling to Israel and should be troubling to the United States. But their inability to in any way distract Israel, if they were to try to launch some sort of offensive from...
What do you guys think about when Trump was talking about Palestine and building hotels and all that stuff? I think it's hilarious, but cool nonetheless. It would be great for the region. I mean, how many jobs would open up for those people? And the funny thing is the majority of the people there support that sort of thing. But this whole hang-up with the religion in the region, I mean, Christ, people, just live and let live, would you? It's a foreign concept to those people.
Iran is not the giant that everybody assumed it to be. In fact, it's a paper tiger. And the regime, while it's perhaps trying to hold on with its ability to massacre, the Iranian people who are against them, again, no one should interpret these lashings out by the regime and their weakened allies as signs of strength or something that the United States and Israel a sign that they're losing. Quite the contrary. It's how it's happening and in the manner in which they are doing this is actually illustrating their weakness, their isolation, and perhaps why they're on their last legs.
Jonathan, you were describing the evolution and the changing in the region, in the Middle East and a little bit beyond. From your perspective, as you've been monitoring all of these developments, at this point in time, how would you describe the changes in the Middle East? Is this the most significant and radical changes that you've seen, in recent years? And really, how much of a seminal moment are we in right now?
Asking these
Well,
obvious
we are
questions.
in a seminal moment, but this has been building, frankly, since their high point on October 7th, when they launched this, terrible war against Israel with unspeakable atrocities. Everything that has happened since then has shown their decline, shown the decline of Iran, which was seen by many in the Arab and Muslim world as the strong horse in the Middle East. Barack Obama's appeasement of them in the 2015 nuclear deal had solidified their hold. All that's slipping away from them. It's been, in some ways it's been gradual, as the war in Gaza showed, and then their defeat in Lebanon, and then what happened in Syria, and then the bombing of their nuclear facilities, and now they're being stripped of, basically all of their military assets in the attacks by Israel and the United States. This is, as they sometimes say about, as the expression about bankruptcy, it happens very slowly and then all at once. I think the Iranian regime, which is rightly described as evil, the world's largest state sponsor of terror, I think that's how we can describe their decline and what may well be their fall.
Jonathan, from the very beginning of Operation Epic Fury, we saw extreme integration between the U.S. military and the Israeli military. We were hearing from Secretary Hegseth about, the goals that the United States would like to accomplish, which includes, no nuclear program, removing all of the ballistic missiles, etc. For this to happen, how does it happen?
Well, let's be honest, we don't know how it's going to happen, but the first stage is the destruction of Iran's military capability, and that is what is happening. They are in no position to resist these attacks, as it's been shown.
You're damn right.
They're lashing out in the Arab world and at Israel, causing casualties, with these atrocious missiles, but they're running out, and they're losing their ability to use this. And the truth is, these sorts of regimes, these sorts of ideologies, rarely survive catastrophic military defeats. And I think what the United States is counting on is that forces within Iran are going to, look around and figure out what time it is and time to change. Are we sure that that's going to happen? No, we're not sure. We don't know how that's going to go. And partly, the United States is limited by President Trump's, understanding that, the United States can't fight a land war, in Iran, doesn't want to, and it doesn't want an Iraq-style, quagmire. It's going to leave it to the Iranian people.
Rightfully
and
so.
They may not be able to. The regime forces may cling to power, but the regime that emerges from
I
this,
saw
still run by
I saw a
Islamist
post on Facebook that might not even be true, but the new Ayatollah that took the dead guy's place was killed. Oh, I hope it's true. What a blow to that stupid ass system they've got.
The impact on the Middle East, is tremendous. We're already seeing it. All of Iran's allies are falling or are weakened. That's going to impact the ability of Hamas to hang on. If their Iranian sponsors and paymasters are no longer able to send them weapons or even just give them money, that will have an impact on them and on Hezbollah and on the Houthis as well. So I think the prospects for a more stable Middle East are pretty good right now. And I think that will have a ripple effect on a lot of things happening, even on American politics. as sort of the far anti-Semitic right and the anti-Israel left, chirps away about Trump and the war. But, I don't know if this is going to work out as they think it is going to. And
it never
quite
does.
frankly, even if the regime lives on in some truncated form, I don't know that this is going to be, it's not going to be a disaster for the United States, because if at the very minimum, Iran has no nuclear program, it has no missiles, ballistic missiles, and its terror operation is basically shut down, that's an Iran that is terrible for the Iranian people if it's still run by Islamist theocrats.
Absolutely. Well, what I was just saying earlier about tokenizing stocks, look at the one that's performed the best today. Netflix's tokenized stock is up 83%, almost $1,000 per token. That's unreal. More and more companies are starting to tokenize their stocks. This is the future, guys. More and more companies are going to do it. It's going to keep on happening. Look at that. It's up 83%, and it's still classified as a buy. That's insane. That's absolutely batshit to me. But that's the way of the future. You can be a part of it, or you can get run over. The people that talk down against crypto, those are the same closed-minded fools that thought the internet was a passing fad back in the 90s. Oh, it'll pass. Nobody wants to sit on their computer all day. Nobody wants to talk to people on the internet. Where are these people now? They are gone with the wind, living in the past, and talking down against crypto. I'm sorry, like it or not, crypto's here to stay. You're not putting that cat back in the bag. Ain't happening. And the thing about crypto is, as I mentioned this in one of my videos, A Case for Bitcoin, is this technology threatened the upheaval of the power structure in the world, the financial power structure, the international banking cartels, those that enslave humanity with debt. It threatened to completely rewrite the book. This is why I do believe that Satoshi Nakamoto is likely dead. They probably got to him. And throughout liberal media, you still hear all of these late-night talk show hosts and the daytime shows talking down on crypto when they don't even understand it to begin with. But that's the agenda, is because, they don't want full transparency in the financial sector, because then they wouldn't be able to get away with the fraud and the other things that they do, nefarious things that people do. Sorry for my stuttering. I've got an echo in my ear. But what you're seeing now, 16 years later after Bitcoin's inception, is a if you can't beat them, join them mindset. You see more and more mainstream adoption of blockchain technology, and you will continue to see it. This is, I'm telling you, to use a phrase I coined, Bitcoin is the way. And the cat is not going back in the bag. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Do you agree? You think I'm out of my mind? You think it's going to go to zero? Short of a global EMP, that is not going to happen. And even with a worst-case scenario, let's say World War III breaks out and the entire world goes crazy and everybody throws nukes at everybody, guess what? We will rebuild. That is what we do. And you can't live your life in fear that something might happen. If we did that, we would still be making fire, rubbing sticks together, for Christ's sake.
We are going to just step away for a brief moment. We'll be right back.
No, we won't. There's another nickel they're going to take from me. What's Bloomberg saying?
Gulf region. So against its neighbors, the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain issuing a grave warning to Americans there that hotels might be targeted in the wake of these strikes on Iran. Is this...
Because that's what Iran does,
misguided
cowards.
in now drawing in its neighbors in this way?
You see Iran
I
bomb
think
their
Iran
own
has
schools,
significant military
killing a
power,
bunch of
and I
children.
think it has,
That was their
sort of
own
done that in
stuff.
Dubai,
That was their
it's
own
done
missiles.
near sort of touristy areas. And, you've assassinated their leader. They're going to have to show force in the region, or then they're just more vulnerable. And in terms of Israel, obviously, that's a very large target for them. So now you've got a situation where they have to balance their responses. They don't want an all-out war, but they can't look like they're not doing anything, because that makes them even more vulnerable. And remember, we don't know that their military is incapacitated. Their military, probably is still quite strong, no matter how much we bomb them at the moment.
I don't care how strong any military is in the world. Nobody can shake a finger at the United States of America. We spend more than the next 5 countries combined on our military. And we print the money that we use to fund it. Plus, if you believe that there's been any contact with aliens, we reign supreme in technology as well. The transistor, or not the transistor, did I forget? I don't want to get into all that. That's a large subject. We could certainly talk about it at some point, though. Drop a comment if you think I should make a video on some alien conspiracy stuff, because I do have a lot of info on it. You got to take that stuff with a grain of salt, right? Because there is a lot of misinformation out there. And there is like zero real hard evidence. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson says, if you ever get abducted by aliens, steal an ashtray.
Afghanistan is that the United States needs a contained effort.
Bring us some proof.
Strategy. And you can't always control what the pressures will be on what we have to respond to.
Wait a minute. What's Fox Now saying?
Terror. But over the weekend, statements from the government and the Prime Minister provided no such clarity. It was only last night that the Prime Minister finally told us that the government would allow our allies the use of our own air bases, despite it being obvious that UK interests were under imminent threat. It took Iranian missiles hitting allies in the Gulf before he finally made a decision. And even after that, the Foreign Secretary said this morning that the government has put limits on the actions of our allies operating from our bases. Unbelievably, in his statement today, the Prime Minister still cannot say whether he backs the strikes or not. Today, the President of the United States has taken the extraordinary step of rebuking the Prime Minister publicly, saying he took far too long to grant access. We are told that this dither and delay is because of concerns over international law, but I am afraid that explanation simply does not hold. International law didn't prevent our allies from clearly and unequivocally stating whose side they were on. You don't need international law to say whose side you're on. It has not prevented British governments in the past from supporting strikes which we knew to be right. As the Shadow Attorney General has said, if the doctrines of international law are unable to restrain Iranian terrorism and mass murder, if they tie the hands of democracies while forcing us to stand and watch Iranian atrocities, international law will have failed. It will have become a fundamentally immoral system of law.
Amen.
Why is it that under this Prime Minister, international law always seems to be at odds with our national interest? Why is it that we are giving away? Why is it? Why is it that we are giving away the Chagos Islands and paying £35 billion for the privilege rather than standing up for our national interest and protecting the crucial military base, which even now our allies are using?
Guys, Bitcoin is pushing 70,000. It is knocking on the door.
And where the government is doing the right thing, we will always back them. So let me reiterate our offer that if the government brings forward legislation to fast-track banning the IRGC, we will support them. But let me ask the Prime Minister, what national interest was served by refusing to help our allies for so long, particularly when we so need American support to protect Ukraine's and Europe's security? Are we going to see new UK military capabilities deployed to protect our security partners, our bases, including in Cyprus, and British nationals in the region? And will the Prime Minister ensure the Chancellor uses the spring statement tomorrow to set Britain on a clear path to 3% of GDP on defence spending? There is no point wanting action to make the world a safer place, but being too scared to do anything except stand by and watch others. Mr. Speaker, our national interest and national security must be front and centre. The Conservative Party will always work with our allies to make the world a safer place.
Mr. Speaker, she asked about contingency plans for UK nationals, and I can assure her in the House we're working at speed with our partners in the region to take whatever measures we can to make sure that our people can return as safely and as swiftly as possible, and we'll continue to do so. And I'm happy to update her and the House as we roll out those plans. Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. There were two distinct and separate decisions over the weekend. The first decision was whether or not the United Kingdom should join the US-Israel offensive.
I heard France already surrendered.
We took the decision that we should not. That we should not.
Absolutely right.
The second decision was a separate decision and actually a separate request from the US, which was whether we should permit the use of bases for the distinct, specific, defensive purpose of collective self-defence of our allies and to protect British lives, which were put at risk by the actions of Iran on Saturday and Sunday. We took the decision that we should do so.
Good.
I am clear in my mind that any UK action must always have a lawful basis. It must also always have a viable and thought-through plan.
Yes.
And it must be in our national interests.
Yes.
The Leader of the Opposition, I think, is saying she would have joined the initial strikes whether they were lawful or not. I noticed she didn't say the Shadow Attorney General said they would have been lawful, just that the law should be changed.
An interesting turn of phrase.
And I think she said they would have joined the initial strikes without regard to whether they had a plan. She was very critical of us not joining sooner. Therefore, it's impossible to have that position without arguing that we should and we could have joined. I fundamentally disagree.
We were listening in to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer as he is addressing the UK Parliament, talking about the very latest developments in Iran. We're going to just step away for a brief moment, heading right back to London.
Yeah, at 11 we're supposed to have somebody speak. I can't remember who. I'm pretty sure it's the UK. This video's got it all. A little bit of ASMR. I'll see what Bloomberg's saying.
If things drag on, if energy assets in the region are damaged and require time to bring back online, you could easily imagine a scenario that exceeds $100 a barrel. So it really, at this point, it's going to depend on the nature of what happens next. And I would just mention that, you know, the equities that are related to the industry, they're also moving, right? So if you look at, we had a note out this morning on some of the Canadian E&Ps, which produce oil, and quite unsurprisingly, given oil is up so much, they are moving in concert with the commodity.
Yeah, and I read earlier Bloomberg Intelligence had a range of where oil may go given this conflict, and at the highest end, it was about $108 a barrel. But Rob, I would love
that
for
heat
you
map for crypto.
Sort of give us a comparison between what's happening now and how the oil market is reacting, and how oil reacted 4 years ago when Russia.
Well, we're going to have gas go up. That's just a fact. I mean, how could it not? I could be wrong, but I doubt it. In fact, you know what? I got a shirt in my store that says that. But, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, small price to pay. I'll gladly pay a little bit extra for gas at the pump to know that good things are happening for the people of Iran. They've been under so much horrible. I'm trying my best not to use profanity. You know what I'm saying. Just take a look at how they looked in the 70s before their idiotic theocratic regime took over and forced women to dress up. You know, there's people here in America when Donald Trump was elected who believed that we were in for a Handmaid's Tale type reality. Well, it still hasn't happened. If you're so worried about a Handmaid's Tale type reality, then look no further than how Iran has been the last 40 years compared to how they were in the 70s. They looked a lot like we did, like our country did. There's images of women wearing normal clothes and not covering themselves head to foot. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go back to Fox now because it looks like some more British people are speaking.
Will not become offensive. And in rightly protecting our allies in the region, can we be assured by the Prime Minister that he won't follow Trump's lead down a slippery slope into a protracted conflict? And finally, Mr. Speaker, we rightly expect our brave armed forces to protect British citizens around the world in crises like this. But that includes tax exiles like Isabel Oakeshott and washed-up old footballers who mock ordinary people who stay in the UK and pay our taxes here. So as we protect them, does the Prime Minister agree it is only right for tax exiles to start paying taxes to fund our armed forces just like the rest of us do?
Well, can I thank you for his question and agree that the response of Iran has been outrageous, particularly hitting countries which played no part in the strikes on them.
That's what they do.
We have had extensive discussions with the United States at all levels, including the military-to-military level, continually over the course of the weekend. We deliberately took the decision not to join the offensive strikes that were carried out by the US and Israel. We did take the decision to take defensive action, firstly ourselves on Saturday with putting pilots in the sky, and secondly by allowing the bases to be used for purely defensive reasons. And we clearly set out the legal basis upon which we took the second of those decisions. And in relation to the limits, they are limited to defence, and that is the base upon which we've agreed the basing. In relation to his last point, I want to be clear that it is my duty, our duty, to protect all UK nationals in the region, and we will endeavour to do everything we can in order to do so.
Chair of the Defence Select Committee, Tammanji Singh Desai.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Iranian regime, including its late leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, are of course no friends of our country, but I thank the Prime Minister for clarifying that the UK had no involvement in the Israeli and US strikes on Iran. And indeed, my heartfelt condolences to all those who have sadly lost loved ones in the region thus far. And I'm extremely concerned about the safety of the millions of people in the region, including the thousands of Brits who are living there and currently stranded there. So can the Prime Minister please confirm what steps are being taken to ensure their safety, especially from the one-way attack drones? What steps are being taken to help evacuate those Brits who are stranded and want to come back to the UK? And what steps are being taken with our allies to help de-escalate the situation?
In relation to the protection of our citizens, obviously we're still operating and we will continue operating defensively in the air in the region, taking out the missiles and the drones and the strikes, and we have permitted the US basing specifically for the purpose of taking out Iran's ability to launch the strikes in the first place. And the US has the capability to do that in particular. On the question of our citizens and their desire, understandably, to return home as swiftly and safely as possible, we're doing all that we can, working very closely with our partners in the region, and I would ask all those in the region to register their presence so we can give them the best advice as quickly as possible as to how we can keep them safe and bring them home as quickly as possible.
Father the House, Sir Edward Lee.
Whilst many of us believe that we should be guided by the law of national self-interest, not so-called international law, does the Prime Minister agree that we are right to be cautious in this matter, that the British public will warmly support him in defending British people and bases, but they're very sceptical about being dragged into the cesspit of Middle East politics? They remember Iraq, which some of us voted against. They remember all the arguments about weapons of mass destruction. What evidence, actually, is there that Iran was on the cusp of acquiring nuclear weapons? And since when has regime change from the skies ever changed the regime?
Are you kidding me?
Let me thank him for his question. This government does not believe in regime change from the skies, and I thank him for his question. The lessons of history have taught us that it is important when we make decisions like this that we establish there is a lawful basis for what the United Kingdom is doing. That is one of the lessons from Iraq. And that there's a viable, thought-through plan with an objective that can be achieved or has a viable prospect of being achieved. That is the principles that I applied to the decisions that I made over the weekend. They're the principles I applied to the decision not to get involved in the offensive strikes of the US and Israel. They're also the principles I applied separately to the separate decision and a separate request from the US to be able to take defensive action in order to hit the launchers for the missiles that are currently going into allies, countries in the region, and currently threatening our citizens and our service personnel. And I stand by both of those decisions. I repeat, I am not prepared to commit our military service people to action unless I am sure that what they're doing is lawful and has a viable basis. We can discuss what the law is on another occasion, but the law is what it is, and they deserve to know that their Prime Minister cares and pays attention to whether what I'm asking them to do is lawful, and I will always do that.
Diane Abbott, Mother of the House.
The Prime Minister will be aware that very many of our constituents remember the Iraq War, and they will have noted the similarities between this war and the Iraq War, both in the Middle East and both illegal. Of course, this regime, the current regime in Iran, is a horrible regime, violent, murderous, and a threat to international order. But does he accept that our constituents are not prepared to see this country dragged into another war in the nature of the Iraq War?
You know, you've heard the phrase, choose your battles. This is one of those battles that needs to be chosen. I mean, come on.
To our nationals, I think everybody and all of our constituents would expect our government to take action to protect British nationals. We have 300 British nationals in the region. They are at risk. We've already seen strikes on hotels and airport, hotels where our British nationals have been staying. We've had strikes near military bases within hundreds of yards of our personnel. It's our duty to take the action that we can take and will take to protect them.
Sir Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We were just listening to the UK Parliament as they're discussing Operation Epic Fury. But before we go to break, I did want to share this live look with you. This is inside the White House as you're taking a look at an event that is set to get underway with President Trump. As you're taking a live look right here, you may see the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Air Force General Dan Raisen-Kane, as he is speaking with constituents right there. We have not received an alert from the White House to indicate when this may get underway. This was scheduled to get underway at 11 a.m. Eastern time, but we do see folks still walking into the room.
Okay. Maybe we'll cover that too, because I'm just having so much fun. Let's see what Yahoo's saying.
Hitting energy infrastructure a lot more fully, the blowback from the international community would be enormous because...
Yeah, we're hearing from the international community, everybody. See what Bloomberg says.
Fitch upgrading their credit rating to BBB from BBB minus, and they're talking about the company's execution of their debt reduction plan for 2026. They see that as going well, and they also see another about $700 million in debt in terms of debt being reduced. That is giving them a more positive outlook for this company.
So you've also got your eyes on Norwegian.
Okay, well, Bitcoin is knocking on 70,000. It's knocking on that door. You see it retraced a tiny bit. I do believe we're going to break through $70,000 today, baby. And Ethereum doing better than it has in plenty of time. Silver. Dude, silver was at $95. What, yesterday? It's down to 87. It's going to continue to go down as long as the dollar keeps performing as well as it is performing. Oil not looking quite as bad as a lot of people are thinking it will, including myself, actually. I expect oil to go up. But you remember, if you're old enough to remember 9/11, what happened to gas the week of 9/11. That's the last time that I ever saw gas at like 87, 89, 99 cents a gallon. Oh, it was beautiful. But what happened shortly thereafter? It ran up to about $4. In my area, way more in other areas, of course. So I do believe that's what we're seeing right now. You're seeing prices come down a little bit, which I guess that's what tends to happen right at the beginning of wartime. Likely because there's a lot of money being spent on these things because they are needed for the war effort. But once that Strait of whatever the hell I forget, the Hormuz, I think is the name of it. Once that gets bottlenecked, we probably are going to see the price of the barrel of oil jump up. It's very possible it could run up to $100 a barrel. And if that happens, well, then you can expect to see gas run up about 30 to 50% more, which might hurt. That's about another $1. But I don't know about you, and feel free to tell me if you disagree. The world has the balls to do what we're doing right now. So I praise Trump for that. I don't care what anybody says. Now you can just wait and see all the late night talk show hosts and those hateful wenches on The View. I'm sure they're going to have plenty of negative things to say. After a few of them were found on the Epstein files, imagine that. But now since they're on those Epstein files, well, people can be on the files and not be guilty of anything. Yeah. I don't know how those idiots stay on the air.
To the Prime Minister. He also noted that not only Israel is under threat by Iran now, also the entire region and also Europe. Apparently, a drone was launched at a base in Cyprus. So he said that if Iran would be able to get nuclear weapons, not only the region, not only Europe, but all of humanity would be threatened by Iran.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Cyprus, because apparently the UK base there in Cyprus has now been targeted, the airport there as well. Just give us an idea, though, of what things are like on the ground. I know you're coming to us from Jerusalem, and sort of the mood there in Israel.
The mood?
Well, I think people were waiting a long time for this moment, and I think that most of the Israeli people are convinced that there is no choice but to confront Iran.
Yeah, duh. They've been waiting on America to help them out. They're so isolated there, surrounded by people who hate them. Of course, they're joyous of our involvement. We finally have a president that's willing to do something.
Someday in history, people will see. But
ooh, what's Yahoo doing?
All 435 in the House, including a number of members on the House and Senate side, just in the state of Texas tomorrow. They need to have a clear understanding of why the president is at war with Iran right now, why 4 service members have died, and how long we're going to be there. The duration question is mission critical for member support. They remember the Iran.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I was shocked to see how fast the supreme leader was killed. That was amazing.
They said this was going to be quick, and 2 decades later, we were still there. So the American sort of hangover, the institutional muscle memory that we recall about how long Middle East engagement really does take is very present. You can see it in the polling nationwide. Americans believe that this war will take weeks, if not years. Not very few believe that it'll be hours or days. So that's something that the president's going to have to telegraph really clearly to members going into this week's votes.
We are going to have to stamp out a lot. I mean, do you know how hard it is to kill an idea? And the theocracy that's over there is one of the most prominent ideas of the region, of that part of the world. You just don't expect no pushback. We need to bomb them back to the Stone Age. That's what we need to do.
That have oppressed them and are terrorizing them. Let's face it, when there's bombs falling all over the country, it's very hard to get people and populations mobilized to take to the streets and overwhelm the security forces that have killed thousands of them just less than a month ago.
Okay, well, let's recap, because I'm about to wrap up here. The crypto heat map is looking great for the last 4 hours. Even better for the last, I think it's better for the last hour. Yeah. Doesn't seem to change very much. The last 24 hours looks pretty good too. That's consistent growth. Ethereum looks like it might be pushing up towards 2100. Hurry up, 10K. Bitcoin's still running strong towards that 70,000. What a day it will be if that happens. Once it hits 70,000, that's a pretty big psychological amount of resistance right there. Because as you can see, there isn't much really there. Dollar kicking ass today, which is why you're seeing silver drop almost 10% since yesterday. You know, that kind of hurts if you've invested in silver, but don't worry. Silver will perform later on. If you know anything about the Fibonacci's, right now, silver is reacting to the dollar, and the dollar is reacting to the war. But the Fibonacci's involving silver say that we will run up to about $130, $140 per ounce for silver. When that happens, when it gets to about 130, 140, it's going to crash again. So if you're invested at all, and right when it gets up to about 130, pull out. Not financial advice. Because it will crash, likely probably about 30 to 50%. Like the last little crash it did. Once that's done consolidating, we're going to run up to about $200. That's what the Fibonacci say. The Fibonacci's never lie. The problem is you don't know how long it's going to take. It could happen next month. It could take all year. It could take 5 years. I don't think it's going to take that long personally, but I do think it's probably going to be at least till September-ish before all of that plays out. And depending on how fast that 130 comes will dictate how fast the next 200 jump will take to come along. Anyway, that's my prediction for silver. And I've been buying and selling silver for the last 20 years, so I'm used to seeing these the little moves it's been doing in the last 10 years, how it's just been stagnant. But I remember when it ran up to almost $50. I think it was 2013-ish, 2012, 2013. And people were saying, oh, it's going to run up to $2,000 an ounce, which was not based on any form of reality whatsoever. I knew better than that. But I had been buying it at that point since it was like, I don't know, $12, $15 an ounce. And, oh, God, I wish we could have those prices for a day. But, yeah, when it ran up to almost $50, I saw it struggling to get over that $50 mark, which it didn't go above. It was like $49 and change. I think I had something like 15 or 20 pounds of silver. I unloaded every last bit of it, almost right at the top. And then it dropped down to the $30 range, $30, $35, and sat there for a decade. My cousin and I were both buying silver at the same time, and bouncing ideas off of each other. He was convinced that it was going to go a little higher. I wasn't. Boy, he was pissed off. How did you call it? Well, I mean, honestly, I guessed. It just didn't seem likely that it was going to keep going too high. I had already tripled my money in some cases. It was time to get out. I made my money, you know what I mean? Had it ran up to $2,000, I still would have made my money. Just not as much. Anywho, anybody got any last-minute requests they'd like me to check out before I sign off? Because I have a hungry boy. I have a need to go get some food. If nobody else has anything, I think I've got one whopping viewer watching me on Rumble. And to you, I thank you. Make sure you click that follow button, would you, buddy? I'd really appreciate it. But to all those watching, one guy on Rumble, thanks for coming. I love you guys. Nothing but gratitude. And we will catch you next time. Peace, love, and hair grease. Be good to each other. Try and be more tolerant of the other person's opinions because, you know, everybody's got one.